Billows of smoke curled over the horizon, and the sky burned with the light of war. I stood alone on the ridge, staring down at the sea of soldiers spread out beneath me. Tens of thousands of them, just me on this side. There was no army at my back, no reinforcements waiting to charge in. My tiny village had been abandoned to its fate. Live or die, we were on our own. You might think I'm an idiot for coming here alone. Honestly, I might agree. But if I let that army advance even one step farther, my home, my family, and everyone who has ever treated me kindly will be trampled to death. I'm not a saint, and I'm definitely not a hero. I don't rush out to save strangers just because it's the right thing to do. I'm here for my people. If others get saved along the way, then they're just lucky to be standing near the ones I care about. Call it selfish if you want. I don't really care. I'm someone who holds the people I love very close. My gentle parents who raised me with more warmth than I ever deserved. My big brother who always stepped in when the village kids bullied me. The auntie next door who pretended to accidentally bake too many cookies. So many people treated me like family. Protecting them is the least I can do. You might ask where I found the courage to stand here in front of such a huge army alone. You might also ask if I'm afraid of dying. Let me answer the easy one first. Am I afraid of death? Yes. Terrified. Anyone who says they're not afraid of dying is either lying or an idiot. That's what I would have said before. As for where my courage comes from, that's a bit more complicated. I've been hiding a secret since I was very young. A secret that stretches beyond this world to a place called Earth. It's hard to explain, and I'll get to it. But first, I need to finish things here. I tilted my head back and raised my hand to the sky, palm open. Magic circles flickered faintly in my eyes, and I whispered a single phrase. Grand Fall. Faith, what do you think of him? My friend Jen, short for Jennifer, pointed out toward the school's soccer field, where a bunch of guys were running around chasing a ball. We've been forced to sit here and enjoy the fresh air during break. I had just turned 16 this year, and, to this day, had never had a boyfriend. Not because I was ugly or anything. It was more like boys were a waste of time. People can call it an excuse if they want. I just prefer to spend my free time on things that didn't give me a headache. Like reading. Yes, I'm that person. A book nerd. A full-on bibliophile. To me, reading is life. I love losing myself in a story, slipping into the role of the main character. A girl who can cast spells, go on epic journeys, and tell fate to sit down and shut up. Unfortunately, in a world ruled by science and deadlines, adventure only exists on the page. Faith, are you listening to me? Jin bumped my shoulder, dragging me back from my daydream. Sorry, I was thinking about what I'm going to read later. Which was true. I just started a new novel about a girl who climbed from nothing to become a legendary mage, and it was really good. This is why you'll never get a boyfriend. Jin groaned and pinched my cheeks. Hard. It hurts. Stop. I slapped her hands away, pouting. It's not like I even had chubby cheeks. I only weighed about 100 pounds. She huffed. Who cares? You never listen. I asked what you think of that guy. She jabbed a finger toward one of the boys on the field. I followed her gaze. The boy she meant was decent looking, I guess, and pretty good at soccer. But there was nothing special about him to me. Maybe my sense of good looking had been completely ruined by the unreal male leads in my novels. But reality fell a little flat. So what if he was good at sports? Was he going to magically turn into a superstar? More likely he'd end up with some random job, worrying about bills like everyone else, unless he studied hard and got a degree that could actually pay him back. In short, nothing about him caught my attention. I turned back to Jen with a blank expression. She stared at me for a second, then groaned and held her head. I swear, Faith, what happened to the cute girl who used to run around doing everything when she was little? Now you're a cute girl hiding behind glasses and a curtain of black hair. I wrinkled my nose. What's the point of being cute? I'm at the top of the class, and I'm working on my future. Having fun won't pay for my books. People always say to enjoy your youth, but that doesn't cover rent or my reading habit. Jen sighed again. Yeah, I know. If you get a boyfriend, your precious reading time would suffer. Honestly, if you didn't go out to exercise every day, I'd think you were a shut-in. She finally threw her hands up. All right, I'll stop. There's no changing you anyway. I left the window and went back to my seat. That was my school life. Simple, peaceful, boring, maybe, but comfortable. I never imagined that it would all end that very same day. As usual, after school, I walked home with Jen. We'd grown up together. She was more than a friend. She was my sister in everything but blood. No matter what happened, she was there. Overprotective, loud, and always ready to punch someone in the face for me. Once, when we were still in elementary school, 3 boys cornered me in the hallway because I wouldn't do what they wanted. They didn't care that I was a girl. They just wanted someone weaker to push around. Jen didn't even hesitate. She charged in, fists flying, and beat them half to death. From that day on, she was my knight in shining armor. Our parents were close too, so we naturally grew up stuck to each other. I might have been a bit airhead at times, getting lost in my books, but Jen was the type who acted first and thought later. And that habit is exactly what killed me. We were crossing the street, almost on the far sidewalk, when she suddenly realized she dropped something. Without warning, she spun around and ran back to grab it. To this day, I still don't know what she dropped. What I do remember is the truck. It was tearing down the road way too fast. The driver clearly wasn't paying attention. People say your body just moves on its own in moments like that. No thinking, no planning, just pure instinct. When I saw the truck and realized it was going to hit Jen, my body shot forward. "Jen, look out!" I screamed. She barely had time to squeak before I slammed into her and shoved her away with everything I had. She went tumbling across the pavement. All I saw then was her panicked face. And then the truck hit me. Something heavy crashed into my body, and the world flipped. Pain exploded in my head. I heard Jen screaming, voice cracking with terror. "Faith, no. Faith, stay with me. You can't die on me." I had never heard her sound so desperate. I could feel my life slipping away like water leaking through cupped hands. It was terrifying, but by then I knew there was no coming back. Regret flooded me. I regretted making Jen feel like it was her fault. I knew she would carry that guilt for the rest of her life. I regretted not being able to tell my parents goodbye or thank them properly for raising me. I even regretted not finishing that light novel about the silly dragon girl I just started, and then there was nothing. The strange thing about life is that you only understand how bizarre it can be when something impossible actually happens. For me, reincarnation was something that existed only in fantasy novels. I had read plenty of stories about being reborn in another world, keeping your memories, getting some kind of cheat power. I never thought I'd experience it. I don't know if I was supposed to remember my past life or not, but when I opened my eyes again, I remembered everything. Thinking, "It's a baby girl," someone shouted, followed by relieved laughter and cheers. I, on the other hand, had no idea what was going on. Just opening my eyes felt like trying to lift boulders. After a few minutes of effort, my vision finally cleared, and I instantly knew something was wrong. Yeah, this was not normal. In the corner of my vision, floating like a HUD, was my name, Faith. Under it, 2 bars. One red, one blue. The red bar read, 10 tenths. The blue bar just had a single symbol, infinity. I didn't play games much, but even I knew what I was looking at. HP and MP health and mana. Straight out of an RPG or online novel. While I was still processing this, I focused on the old woman hovering over me with a worried expression. That was when another problem hit me. She was huge. Like giant huge. For a moment, I seriously thought I had ended up in a world of giants. It took a few long, embarrassing minutes for the obvious to sink in. The baby girl they were talking about was me. I had just been born. What I couldn't figure out was why the old woman was staring at me like I had 7 heads. "Mr. Cerilia, you should take a look at this," she said, and I felt my tiny body being handed over to someone else. A man came into view, and for a second I forgot how to think. He was ridiculously handsome, with fiery red hair and warm, orange eyes that somehow looked both strong and gentle as he studied me. "Looks like our little lady inherited our ancestors' blood," he murmured. "This is troublesome." Those words sent a chill straight through my newborn spine. Was I so strange that they were going to throw me away? I didn't know what was wrong with my body, but judging by their faces, it wasn't something minor. Then, after a short pause, the man spoke again. "It doesn't matter. She's my daughter. and I'll treat her as such. That will never change. She is, and always will be, my precious daughter. All we can do is hope and have faith that she'll overcome whatever comes her way. The last part sounded ominous, but the warmth in his voice washed a lot of my fear away. Defect or not, this man, my father, clearly loved me. I could feel something odd about my body, but I had no way to check. I couldn't even lift my arms properly. All I could move freely were my eyes and mouth. Being a baby really sucks. Have faith, huh? Faith, what a pretty name. Darling, let's name her Faith, a young woman said. The moment I heard her voice, my heart tightened. I just knew she was my mother. And when I realized they were giving me the same name I'd had in my previous life, I almost cried. It felt like a little piece of my old parents was following me into this new world. 6 months later, I could finally sit up on my own. It took a lot of effort. Baby bodies are seriously weak. Still, I hadn't exactly been idle. I'd gotten used to the nanny changing my diapers, no matter how humiliating it was at first. Wetting yourself is not something you ever get used to mentally, but physically, well, when you have no choice, you adapt. I learned my parents' names. My father was Sandra Cerilia, and my mother, with her beautiful snow-white hair and deep blue eyes, was Lilith Cerilia. They weren't rich, and our house was simple. Wooden walls, 2 bedrooms, not much furniture. But they were warm, loving, and always smiling at me. After my first life, I understood how rare that was. I still love my parents back on Earth, but the ones in this world were just as precious. I promised myself I'd return their kindness with everything I had. I also wasn't an only child. I had a 5-year-old brother named Eric. He kept his distance at first, always standing several feet away like he might break me if he got too close. But one day, I grabbed his finger with my tiny hand and giggled at him. He smiled so brightly that I made a mental note to act like a proper baby more often. Honestly, I had no idea how to act like a baby, but since I couldn't do much else, faking it was the best I could manage. Now, about my defect. I wasn't completely human. My parents were human, but my father carried dragonkin blood from his ancestors, and that bloodline had popped back up in me. This world was not Earth. Here, magic was very real. My parents would casually cast little spells in front of me, just to make me laugh. Sitting on my mother's lap while she taught Eric was my main source of intel. For a 5-year-old, he was pretty impressive. He could already read and write. My mother taught him language, history, and math. Magic, as it turned out, required a sharp mind for calculations and magic circles. There was basic math like on Earth, but there was also an advanced magical math system that went right over my baby head. I saw familiar patterns here and there, which helped a bit, but there's only so much a 6-month-old brain can process. The more I tried to focus, the sleepier I became. We lived in a town called Wandamir on the continent of Comoros in the Gravos Kingdom. Long ago, dragons ruled the world with overwhelming power. No race could challenge them. Then, for reasons no one knew, they vanished, leaving behind only mixed-blood descendants, dragonkin. And me? I wasn't just part dragonkin. I was full dragonkin. I'd seen my reflection a few times. I had my mother's white hair and my father's orange eyes. On top of that, I had a few unmistakable dragon features. Small red horns poking out from the sides of my head, slightly pointed ears, little bumps on my back where my father said my wings would eventually grow, and a long red-scaled tail. Yes, a tail, and it was surprisingly useful. It wasn't just some decorative appendage dangling uselessly. I could move it freely and had already started using it to help support myself and wiggle around. Aside from those features, I looked mostly human. If I was lucky, I'd grow up to be beautiful. If not, well, sometimes the good genes just vanish during the baby-making process. If I could cross my fingers, I would. Then there was the system. Yeah, that system. It really did work like a game interface. Basic but functional. No skill list yet, and no spells, but still. I figured out how to open the status window by thinking the word status. A translucent blue screen appeared in front of me. Name: Faith Cerilia. Age: 0.5. Level 1. Race: Dragonkin. HP: 10/10. MP: Infinity. Status points: 0. Strength: zero point 0.2. Vitality 1. Intelligence 5. Mind infinity. Agility 0.1. I could guess a few things. My high intelligence was probably thanks to my reincarnated soul. Vitality was likely boosted by my dragonkin body. But the mind and MP stats? Both showing infinity? No idea. I didn't even know if that symbol really meant infinite in this world. It could stand for something else entirely. If it did mean what I thought it did, though, then yeah, that would be pretty broken. Everything else seemed to scale reasonably. When I first checked, my strength and agility were both at 0. Over the past 6 months, just by growing, they'd climbed up to 0.2 and 0.1. Hey, progress is progress. It also told me I could get levels and status points somehow, though the method wasn't obvious. Did I need to defeat monsters? Slimes? Spiders? Hopefully not some poor protagonist from a novel I used to read. If I accidentally kill an MC someday, I'll apologize in advance. Not that I could hurt anything right now with these baby stats. I also noticed that just growing up naturally increased my numbers. When I get older, I plan to train properly and learn everything I can. I don't want to turn into a muscle-bound brute, but I do want to become strong. I'll need something to occupy my mind anyway. There are no light novels in this world. My favorite hobby has been ripped away from me. But in exchange, I've been given magic. So I'll throw myself into that instead. If I can't read about overpowered dragon girls with crazy systems, then I'll just become one myself.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
And so 2 years passed. I have learned a lot in the past 2 years. Well, I mainly concentrated on learning what I could about the makeup of magic circles. I have officially gone from being a bibliophile to being a magicliophile. I know I made up a word, but there was no other way to describe it. The concept of magic in this world really intrigued me. Magic of this world was not all about chanting spells and creating things like in the fantasy stories I read back on Earth. Casting can be done instantly as long as you know the runic equation that created the spell. At least, this is what I have learned so far. I really want to try magic, but I'm also afraid I might mess up. So until I can get proper lessons like my older brother, I will have to wait. My daily life is pretty simple. And to be honest, after living 16 years having to go to school and studying all the time, this kind of carefree life is not bad. Although I'm sure I would definitely be even happier about this kind of lifestyle if I was even older before I died. I still think back to my old life from time to time, which brings me to tears when I think about the people I left behind. Unlike novels where the protagonist somehow forgets everything that happened in their past lives, their parents and friends, everything seems to fly out the window the day they show up in a new world. I mean, it would be different if they had nothing in the past lives, but a lot of the novels I read, these people had families and friends, yet as soon as they come to a new world, they start yelling slay the demon lord and whatnot. Luckily, there is no demon lord in this world. At least, I do not think so. Nothing I have heard so far mentioned anything about some supreme evil. Then again, my doting parents might just be keeping these bad things from my brother and me. Speaking of my brother, he is turning into a handsome young man, and he is always bringing me things back from his time outside. Anything he finds shiny, he will bring back to give to me. For some reason, he thinks I have an obsession for shiny things. I could reject his gifts, but when I see his shining eyes, I cannot bear to say no. I'm able to walk and run around now. My stats have also risen as well. Name: Faith Cerelia Dash. Age 2. Level 1. Race Dragonkin. HP 30 of 30. MP Infinity. Status points 0. Strength 2. Vitality 3. Intelligence 5. Mind Infinity. Agility 1. My strength rose a lot, and so did my vitality. My intelligence is still the same. I am not sure if it is just harder to raise, because it is already high, or that I might actually be stupid. I hope it is not the latter. What I found out about my stats is that my vitality is actually linked to my health, which was good to know. As for my mana and mind, they still show an infinity sign. I can only hope this doesn't mean something like null. With my current interest being magic, I would hate to find out that I can't even use it. Today is a special day for me, though. I can finally go outside. I'm actually quite excited because I have been locked up indoors. My mother and father said that going outside is very dangerous due to the monsters that roam around. While we may live in a small village, monsters do sometimes roam through it. In other words, monsters will be searching for food, and I would be a prime appetizer. Eric, you are not to leave the yard with her, and you must keep an eye on her at all times. Also, my mother was lecturing my brother, but for some reason, her voice went quiet, and she began whispering into his ear. My brother was also nodding his head with a very serious expression. I waited patiently by the door as Eric walked over and took my hand. Faith, make sure you stay close, okay? I did not want to lose my cute little sister. His words made me smile. My family were truly caring and loving people. I promise. I had finally learned to walk well enough during the winter, and as the snow began to melt, my little legs finally allowed me to run. During this time as well, when no one was looking, I was also doing things like push-ups, sit-ups, and squats. Although I can't do more than maybe 5 of each at this time, I was still able to build up some strength. I was actually almost caught a few times, but played it off as if I was dancing. Luckily, it worked. The outside world, I could see through the window of the house. We lived in a village that was located on a high, grassy ridge. Because there were no trees blocking the view, you could easily see far off into the distance. One day, I hoped to see the sights of this world. At first, it was unique because there were 2 suns and 3 moons. Although I'm used to seeing them now, it is still an amazing sight for me. As I walked out of the house holding my brother's hands, my bare feet touched the soft grass, which felt like I was walking on clouds. It was soft and springy and tickled my toes as the blades wiggled their way into between them. My tail swayed as my brother brought me to the side yard. It was a small yard with a short stone fence warped around my family's small wooden cottage. It was a simple life, but to be completely honest, I love every bit of it. The air is fresh, and the sounds of the songbirds singing in the morning were music to the ears. I was fully enjoying this new life. I sat on the soft grass, enjoying the warmth of the day. I plucked some long blades of grass and began weaving them together. This was something I used to do with Jen back on Earth when we were young. By doing this, I feel like I'm a little closer to her. Faith, what are you making? A wreath. Brother, do you want me to make you one too? I asked while smiling at my most handsome brother, for someone who was only 7 years old. I felt slightly bad for the girls who fell in love with him. Eric was the serious sort, and always said things bluntly unless it came to me. Even with our parents, if he did something wrong or if they did something that did not seem right, he would point out flatly without holding back. But when it came to me, he would always tiptoe around me, afraid of making me mad. He was very cute. If you want to make me one, I will gladly accept, Eric replied. I could see the anticipation in his eyes, which made me giggle inside. I flashed him a wide smile and nodded my head. I will make you one then. While I worked on my brother's grass wreath, we talked and laughed. I felt lucky to have a brother who was willing to keep me company so I could play outside. Trent, I do not care if your grandfather is the village elder. If you say one more thing bad about my sister, I will not hesitate to beat you up. My normally calm brother suddenly yelled out in anger. Seeing him stand up in front of me to protect me made me feel warm inside. He was definitely a good big brother. What's going on? Trent, did you say something to my daughter? Ah, mother is mad. That voice is the voice she would yell at father with. I peeked out from behind my brother to see the big bully's face turn pale. It seemed he was afraid of my mother. Humph. Serve him right. To be honest, I think I will grow up to be very beautiful. Wait until he sees me then, and if he still tries to pick on me, then I'll just beat him up myself. Mrs. Cerilia, I was just stating the truth. Trent finally spat out. He seemed to have summoned up all his courage to say that before turning around and running away. His courage only lasted a few seconds. I figured as much. All bullies were like that when faced with someone stronger. After the brat ran away, my mother came over and picked me up, trying to console me. Not sure if she thought I was sad or what, but her embrace was warm, so I didn't say anything. Eric, you did good. If anyone tries to pick on your sister, you must protect her, okay? Don't worry, Mom. I will always protect Faith. My brother's righteous reply made him look like a little man. Just then, he will surely make his wife happy in the future. Speaking of wife, it seems in this world, girls and boys reach adulthood at 15 and normally have a family going by 16. It may seem young, but this was just how it was. Of course, you will not see me with a husband by that age. I will be too busy with magic. Although this seems to be more of a thing for poorer families, while the upper class will have engagements at 15 and then married at 18. But like I said, this is far beyond me, and I do not plan to get married anyway. If I am able to use magic, I will do nothing but work hard at learning everything I can so I can study magic even further. Hopefully, that day will come soon. But for now, I will just enjoy my quiet days. My days were just that, very quiet. While I was not offended by what Trent said that day, my brother would only allow me to play in the backyard right behind the house. I understood why he was doing this, but I still felt a little sad about not being able to see more of the area from outside the house. There were days, though, that when my mother was done with her chores that she would take me outside to the front yard. So I always took this chance to look around and take in the view. It was very important to me to see the outside world. It was a place without tall buildings or densely packed housing. More like what you would find back on Earth, except to get to the next town would take you a few days to a week or more instead of 10 minutes to an hour. As the days went on, my mother discovered that I knew how to read. I was caught reading one of the books on the basics of magic. After a bit of questioning, I finally gave in and said I understood how to read some of the books. On that day, my mother shouted out happily, "My little dear is so smart and bright." In a way, she was not lying. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but when you're in a new world with a new language, you have to learn things from the ground up. But maybe because I was someone who remembered their past life from the very moment they were born that I was able to comprehend things much faster than an average kid. But since that day I was caught, I finally began getting proper lessons in magic. Although I have not been allowed to put any of it to practical use, there was a disease called mana sickness. It was something that kids under the age of 5 would get if they began using the mana built up in their bodies. In this world, mana was part of everything. The air we breathed, the plants on the ground, it was everywhere. Even the food I ate would have strands of mana in it. But because my body was still young, it was dangerous to move the mana within our body. If I did, it could cause my body to react to the mana, and I could end up with mana sickness. Every living being, when first born, needs time to allow their bodies to strengthen. While I was pretty sure my dragonkin body was most likely able to handle it, I did not dare risk it. My mother scared the pants off me when she told me that those who get mana sickness not only have a shorter lifespans, but are also unable to cast magic. To be honest, when I learned of this, I began sweating buckets and thanked my smart brain for not being stupid and trying to use magic at such a young age. I cannot even count how many times I thought about trying to put into practice the things I learned during the days when my brother was being taught practical magic. So right now, the lesson I was being taught was very much a tease. As I said during yesterday's lesson, magic consists of many different calculations. The faster you can process the calculations, the faster you can cast a spell. While some spells are as easy as adding a few runes together, when you begin adding in runic calculations, things get very complicated. Not only will you need the correct amount of mana to cast such spells, but you will also need to be able to calculate the spells fast enough to even make them viable. It is not like you can cast a spell and take your time during the process of it. When casting, you have at a maximum of 5 seconds to cast a spell. This includes even the highest tier spells, such as Grand Fall, which is over 100 runic calculations. I watched as my mother waved her finger around and created a small magic circle in front of her. It shimmered with a bluish light as it floated gently in the air. I could see the runic markings within it, but only half the circle was filled up with these runic markings. This here is a simple, everyday water spell. If completed, it will fill up a bucket of water. But as you can see here, I only completed half the calculations that were needed. These big runes are the main runes that correspond with the element, which in this case is water, while the smaller runes indicate what you want to do with this spell. For this rune, it would be fill the bucket in front of me. But as you can see, I do not have a bucket in front of me, which would then turn the house into a bucket. Which is why when it comes time for you to actually practice magic, You will only be allowed to use magic outdoors under strict supervision. My mother smiled as she said this, but there was a deep meaning within her words. It was one of those, if I catch you doing magic indoors, I will spank your butt and make you clean up the mess meanings. As you may have noticed, this is only using runes to tell the magic circle which element to cast and what to do with it. The runic calculation comes in on the activation sequence. We will not go over that today. Eric, you already know all of this, so I won't ask if you understand. My mother turned her gaze to me and smiled warmly. Faith, if you have any questions, please let me know. It seemed my mother was doing a refresher course on magic today, but it was quite informative, and to see a magic circle actually formed in front of me while being explained helped a lot. While it may seem weird, the first half of the circle had the element name spaced out with the conditions being written in between. When you put the whole formula together with the runic calculations for the activation sequence, you could then cast the spell. But a question came to mind when I looked at this, and since I was one to always ask instead of holding back, I raised my hand. Mother, if someone already knew the answer to the runic calculation, could they just use the answer of the calculation with the condition to quickly cast the spell under a second? I guess my question was not what my mother was expecting. She looked at me with round eyes of shock before her lips curled up to a big smile and began clapping her hands together. Faith, you truly are a genius. Your question is actually a very good one. My mother seemed extremely happy that I was so smart for my age. Even my brother Eric nudged me and gave me a thumbs up. I'm glad my family does not find me weird for being unlike a normal 2-year-old. Normally, I would do my best to act like a child of my age, but when it came to things that I am very interested in, all my acting skills went out the window, and my desire to know more about my interest takes over. Like now, and how I asked such an unlittle kid-like question. At any rate, I was still happy for the praise, and this could be seen with how my tail was wagging back and forth. Sometimes I wonder if my ancestors were part dog, or if dragons really wagged their tails when they were happy. To answer Faith's question, the answer is simple. No, it is not possible to just place the answer of the runic equation into the magic circle and make it activate. The runic equation is what is used to channel the flow of magic into the magic circle. It regulates the magic in the magic circle in order to use the proper amount of magic that is given within the condition. Now before you ask, how does the runic equation understand what the correct amount is? The question is much more difficult to answer, and to this day, no one actually knows. Magic has always been part of our world and has been in use since even before the first civilization to document it was created. We do not know how or when the first spell was created. It could just be something that was just known from birth and is still an ongoing topic within the Magic Academy in the capital city. We only know that the magic is being restricted within the runic equation to limit the amount of output the magic creates. This is why, without a proper activation sequence, with its runic calculations, no magic circle will ever be able to produce magic. It truly amazes me how my mother knows so much. From what I understand, my parents have never left this village and were childhood sweethearts who got married at 15 and had my brother by the time they were 16. The only education they got was from their own parents. This was just how small villages like mine worked. But the way my mother explains things was very simple and easy to understand. I was soaking this information up left and right, and now I felt a challenge. I wanted to be the first person ever in history to create magic circles without needing the lengthy activation sequence. And so now I have a short-term goal. Of course, I still had to wait until I was 5 to actually cast any spells due to the fear of getting mana sickness. But just the idea of being able to do something no one else was capable of was something I couldn't help but dream about. Just thinking about pointing out towards my target with my finger and instantly sending a fireball out without much effort made me shiver with excitement. This was the same excitement I would feel when reading light novels back on Earth when the main character would suddenly burst out with some amazing power. Those kinds of scenes would send chills of excitement down my spine, making me want to cheer the main character on out loud. I, of course, refrained from doing that as it would be embarrassing, but I would giggle like a fool when I read such parts. At any rate, I now had a firm goal in mind. Today I am very excited. I am currently outside, And after 3 long years of waiting, I am now 5 years old and am able to finally begin magic training. Surprisingly, during these past 3 years and my strong dedication to studying and working out to grow stronger, my stats have raised exceptionally. Name: Faith Cerilia. Age 5. Level 1. Race Dragonkin. HP 100/100 MP Infinity. Status points 0. Strength 7. Vitality 10. Intelligence 8. Mind Infinity. Agility 6. I'm not sure if it's because I've been working out and running around a lot the past few years, but along with my strength and agility stats, my vitality skyrocketed as well. To be honest, I do not think I would even care so much about how strong or fast I was if not for the fact that I have a system that shows me my progress. That, and my brother seems to have become my trainer. During the past 3 years, there were a few more times when the kids from the village would show up to take a look at me. And as always, kids are mean, but it was always the same, calling me a monster or some kind of demon. I mean, they even call me ugly. They called me ugly when I am, and I do not mean to sound conceited, but I am beautiful. My mother and father are also beautiful looking, so I can only thank them for that. I guess worrying about not getting their looks was unneeded. Anyway, because of this, my brother worried for my safety for when I was finally old enough to roam around on my own. So he began helping me with training. This also included sword training. Yes, me, the bookworm, is suddenly becoming a sword master. Well, I know how to swing a sword at least. Speaking frankly, using a sword is not all that bad. Kinda makes me feel like a hero from the novels I read. Anyway, my past few years have been fruitful if you ignore the idiots. And more importantly, I am about to be baptized in using mana. I will finally be able to cast my first spell, or at least I hope. I have memorized every single spell in the magic books our family owns. Surprisingly, we own a lot. I'm not sure how it is for other families, but we have an entire bookshelf of nothing but magic books, like 10 in total. And some are even on advanced magic. Sadly, though, the only thing I haven't been able to figure out is how to achieve my goal of not needing to always use the runic equation to activate a spell. I wouldn't mind being able to instacast some summon magic. I mean, how cool would it be to suddenly summon a weapon like Gungnir? Or maybe even Excalibur? Unfortunately, I have no idea if there is such a thing as summon magic in this world. I couldn't find any information on it, and when I asked my mother, she did not seem to know either. Faith, are you paying attention? My mother's dutiful teacher's voice broke me out of my thoughts. She was going over the basics once more, and while I have them all memorized, so it does get boring after a while. Of course, I would never say this out loud, because I did not want to anger my mother. She is the last person in this world I would want to anger. I would rather get in a fist fight with my father than anger my mother. I quickly straightened my back and looked at my mother while nodding my head. Yes. Good. She gave me that knowing look. But she also knows I have memorized everything. So it seems she will let this slide. You may begin. Just do it like I taught you. Finally, I got the okay. To start off, before I can actually cast any spells, I have to first circulate my mana in my body. I felt a shiver of excitement as I tried to concentrate. After so many years, I could finally begin the process of using magic. Faith, listen carefully. When you're trying to use mana for the first time, it is best to allow the mana in your body to flow around naturally to allow you to get the feel of how the mana flows around your body. Now close your eyes and find the mana hidden in your body. It is normally around the top of your stomach. Sometimes it can be found in the chest area as well. My mother was very right about the positioning of the mana in my body. I would never tell her that I have already discovered where my mana was. My mana could be found near the center of my chest, closer to my heart. I'm not sure if this was because I was a dragonkin or not, but my mana source seemed quite large. I closed my eyes and concentrated on my source of mana. I could feel a slight warmness in my chest as I stirred the mana within my mana source. I did my best to start with a small flow of mana, just a small hair-sized strand of it, so I could not overwhelm my body. The strand of mana flowed naturally around my body. I could feel it slowly getting smaller as it made its way through. It seemed parts of my body were soaking in the extra mana. After it disappeared, I pulled another strand out this time. It was twice as big. I did this a few times before deciding to allow my mana to flow out naturally. But as I did, I heard my mother yell out to me, "Faith!" I opened my eyes to find my hair fluttering about, and in front of me, dust and rocks were swirling around, while the grass bent sideways from the wind. I suddenly felt worried that something was wrong and looked up at my mother, who had a hand over her mouth staring at me in shock. After a moment of disbelief, she came to her senses and yelled, "Faith, slow your mana and restrict as much as you can." I slowly nodded. I had no idea what was going on, but from my mother's words, it seems my mana was causing this unusual phenomenon. I kind of felt like one of those super guys from that anime show Bear Ball Z. At least I think that was the name of it. I did not close my eyes this time, as I want to focus on my surroundings as I slowly tightened the knob on my mana flow. As I did, the reaction to the world around me slowly subsided until the dust and rocks settled on the ground. The grass that was bent over from the strong gusts of wind I was generating slowly stood back up as well. I never thought I would make such a scene on my first time, allowing mana to flow around my body. "Faith, do you feel okay?" My mother asked. I could tell she was very worried about me. I can guess why. After all, I just turned into an action hero. But to be honest, even when my mana was flowing out of me, I did not feel any discomfort. I felt perfectly normal. I actually felt very comfortable. Right now, my mana is only flowing slowly out in a trickle compared to the floodgates I opened earlier. "I'm fine. I did not feel weird," I replied. I even made a show of it by jumping around and running in place. Only when my mother saw I was still very spunky did she finally let out a sigh of relief. "That's good. I was afraid you used every drop of your mana. But now I know you must have a very large mana source. Can you feel how much mana you have left?" Now this question here was a bit tricky. I have both mana and health bars. I know my health does drop because I fell once 2 years ago and lost a single point of health. I really scuffed up my knee and elbow pretty badly. But for my mana, I had no chance to actually find out if my mana would be reduced if I used it at all. I have an infinity sign for my mana amount. And well, looking at my bar now, I think I could have released even more mana from my body indefinitely. Of course, I cannot tell my mother that, so I'm forced to lie. I have like a little less than half left. Oh my, to think my baby has so much mana. You really are a genius. My mother seemed to be very excited. I hated lying to her, but I had no choice. It was not like I could say I have a system and seem to have infinite mana in a world where no such thing exists, or at least as far as I know. From everything I have read, every being has a limit on their mana source, and if it runs out, it will cause the person to faint, and in worst-case scenarios, they might even die from mana deficiency. I have read about such things in books. This was also why I said just under half, because if I said it was too low, my kind and caring mother would definitely become scared and begin to freak out. I did not want to see that. But now, she was hugging me and praising me for being some kind of sublime being. Well, as long as she is happy. I really owed my parents a lot for taking care of me and defending me from those who scorn me because of my looks, which I think they're just jealous of. Who wouldn't find me cute? I have cute red horns on my head, a set of red bat-like wings on my back, and my red scaled tail is very pretty, like a red emerald. My long white hair with my orange eyes fits me perfectly. Yes, I sound like a narcissist, but the truth is the truth. But the more I think about it, I might look like a demon to those around me. Oh well, it is not like I am here to impress them, nor do I care what they think about me. Only those who treat me kindly will get the same treatment in return. As for those boys who always say mean things about me, well, just wait a few days when I finally get freed from the confines of the stone walls of my yard. I will teach them a thing or two. Sadly, I was forced to rest for the rest of the day. I studied magic for a while, which quickly turned into 10 hours. This world, called Mestia, day length was much longer than Earth's and was 32 hours long. Due to the double suns, the night cycle was short, making the daytime much longer as well. When it got dark, I closed my book, ate some dinner, and went to my room, which was once just my brother's room, but now I share it with him, and climbed into bed. Although I was disappointed in the fact that I was unable to cast a spell, I was very happy that I had successfully released my mana and allowed it to flow around my body. But strangely, I felt my body was much stronger than it was before. I mean, I could feel the mana being absorbed into my body during the process. I was not sure if this was the reason for this new feeling of strength, but I did not mind feeling stronger. But as curious as I am, I opened up my menu. Status. Name: Faith Cerelia. Age 5. Level 1. Race: Dragonkin. HP: 200 of 200. MP: Infinity. Status points: 0. Strength: 17. Vitality: 20 dash. Intelligence: 18. Mind: Infinity. Agility: 16. Oh, looks like I benefited from that. Or was it because of something else? I mumbled under my breath as I stared at my stats. I have no idea just how strong this actually made me, but it did seem to at least give me a power-up. I gazed at my stats, marveling at the high numbers when they suddenly changed. Strength: 17, 18. Vitality: 20, 21. Intelligence: 18, 19. Mind: Infinity. Agility: 16, 17. I looked at the stats that had just increased by 1 without me doing anything, feeling very surprised. Of course, my first thought was something was wrong. Is it bugged? It was not like I could actually test it to see if it was bugged or not. I mean, I have seen my stats go up before on their own, but it was after I had worked out. My only way of testing to see if it would happen again was to stare at them. And so I did. I laid there and stared at my stats for what felt like an eternity, but only ended up being around an hour. And that was when it happened again. Strength: 18, 19. Vitality: 21, 22. Intelligence: 19, 20. Mind: Infinity. Agility: 17, 18. Is it really because I released my mana earlier? I fell into thought trying to figure it all out when it hit me. My mana flow. I never closed it off. I remember that my mother told me to reduce the mana coming out of my body, but never told me to close it off, so I didn't. I quickly checked, and as I thought, my mana was still trickling out very slowly, seeping into my body, and was being absorbed by my muscles and organs. I had gotten so used to the feeling that I had completely forgotten that it was still being released. I started to get very excited, because if I never ran out of mana and was able to continuously keep my mana trickling out like this, wouldn't my stats continue to rise by 1 point an hour? That was 32 points per day, and after a single year, which was 657 days, that was 21,024 stat points each. Isn't this too OP? I quickly calmed myself down because I knew I was getting ahead of myself. If such a thing was possible, I would end up truly becoming a monster. I did not wish to expect one thing and then end up being sorely disappointed later on. I watched my stats for a while longer to see them change once more before deciding it was time to get some sleep. Strength: 19, 20. Vitality: 22, 23. Intelligence: 20, 21. Mind: Infinity. Agility: 18, 19. I woke up to the sounds of the songbirds singing by the windowsill and gently rubbed my eyes. I looked around my room and my brother's bed to see that he had already gotten up. He had been busy helping my father mow out in the field. Even last night, he did not come home until late. But this was to be expected of harvest season. It was a very important time for my family. Without selling our harvest, we would not be able to last a year. This also meant that my mother would soon be busy prepping the portion of our crop we will use for the family for storage. Unlike Earth in the days of old, magic substituted for things like refrigerators. My father built a large box which was then imbued with ice magic to be used as a freezer to store our food stock. Of course, he would add to it when it was low by going out and hunting small game. Food was the last of our worries, even though we lived so far from any other village. As for spices and other things that the family needed, we could trade for those when the merchant came every month. I have not seen this merchant myself, but I do hope to visit it the next time it comes around, now that I am older. After waking up some, I suddenly remembered what happened last night and once again opened my status menu. Name: Faith Cerelia. Age 5. Level 1. Race: Dragonkin. HP: 300 of 300. MP: Infinity. Status points: 0. Strength: 30, max for level. Vitality: 30, max for level. Intelligence: 30, max for level. Mind infinity. Agility 30, max for level. Max for level. So I guess I can't just become a monster within a year. But it caps at 30 for the level. Does that mean I can only gain 30 more points per level? I really want to test this, but currently I had no way of leveling up, nor did I even know how to level up. I closed the menu and completely closed off my mana flow. But as I did, I slapped my forehead for being so dumb. What was I thinking by leaving it to trickle all night? What if it suddenly dried up? Now I know that my mind and mana stat have infinity symbols, but what I just did was very risky. There was no way of telling if the stat was truly infinity. I will need to be more careful from now on. Faith, are you up? Hurry up and wash up and come eat. We will continue yesterday's lesson. I heard my mother yell, which instantly made me excited. Today is the day I will finally cast my first spell. For real this time. I quickly used the big bowl on the table in a room that was used for washing our faces and splashed it over my face before drying it off and rushing towards the kitchen. I needed to eat quickly, or I would waste even more valuable magic casting time. My mother chuckled as she saw me sitting down and shoving the food in my mouth. Faith, slow down, we have all day. I know, but it's magic. I already couldn't cast it yesterday due to what happened, but today is the day. I have been waiting so long. My eyes were shining, and my excitement was overflowing. I couldn't wait to finally cast my first spell. My mother smiled warmly at me and placed her hand on my head, ruffling my hair. To see you so excited about something makes me feel at ease. My mother's tone was warm, but I got a little confused as she knelt down in front of me and took my hand. She looked up at me with a serious expression before she began speaking again. You must know that you are different from the others due to inheriting your father's ancestral bloodline. Demi-humans, no matter what race they are from, are not well liked within the human kingdoms. Some kingdoms even enslave them. Luckily, our Gravos kingdom has banned slavery, but demi-humans are still not treated fairly. Only those who are able to show they have talents that the kingdom can use are given special treatment. This is why when I first saw you reading at such a young age, I was so excited and happy. Faith, I need you to grow up strong and be ready to face a world that does not treat demi-humans kindly. But I also want you to know that no matter what, me, your father, and your brother will always be here to defend you from the wrongs of the world. You are a beautiful girl and are very kind, although a little naughty at times. But all three of us love you very much. Seeing the tears welling up in my mother's eyes also made me begin to tear up. I now understood why my mother was so happy when I did things beyond her expectations. Why she would always praise me for being smart. I reached out and hugged her tightly. I truly love my family of this life. They were always worried about my well-being and concerned about my future. Don't worry, Mother. I will become amazing at magic, so no one will look down on me. I said softly. She only hummed and hugged me tighter. This was a day I am sure I will remember for the rest of my life. I am not sure how things will end up in the future, but one thing I know for sure is that I will grow stronger and I will make sure to protect the ones I love and care about. Those who treat me kindly will be treated kindly in return. But those who try to harm me or my loved ones, I will not let them off easily. I will not go around attacking people just because they said something bad about me or because they gave me a dirty look, but if they try to harm me or my loved ones, I will then retaliate. This does not mean those mean boys will not get beaten up later. Hee hee. I will make them call me Big Sister later. Today is a beautiful day. A gentle, warm breeze blew across the grassy lawn out behind my house, causing the tips of the grass to bend ever so slightly. The puffy clouds in the sky slowly made their way by casting faint shadows on the ground. Songbirds were in the trees, singing away. It is indeed a good day. But what made this day better than any other day is the fact that right now, at this very instant, I am about to cast my first magic spell. The long-awaited day was finally here. I just had to make sure not to make a scene as I did before. At least, I hope I do not shorten my magic casting time. I just need to make sure I keep my mana output to a minimal amount required for the spell. I was excited when I saw my mother walking over with a small bucket and placing it in front of me. Faith, for your first spell, you'll be filling this bucket with water. It is one of the best beginner spells because it will allow you to be anywhere and still be able to create water. I sighed internally hearing this. I knew my mother was saying this just in case one day I found myself alone due to being a demi-human. A lot of books I read back on Earth talked about such things as discrimination against demi-humans, and now that I am living in such a world, I guess it is true. Although Earth also had its fair share of discrimination as well. This was something I never understood and probably never will. All I know is that in a world where power is law, I just need to be stronger than others in order to not get bullied. While I say power is law, this is not always the case. From the history books, I read that there are many kings and queens in this world. And while they might be powerful by themselves, some have powerful retainers who will follow their orders and are much stronger than those kings and queens. While I live on the continent of Comoros, and this continent alone is as big as Earth itself, there are 30 more continents and millions of islands in this world as well. This planet is able to house over 1,000 Earths. At least, this is my estimate. I do know that if you added up all the landmass and oceans on Earth, it would just barely fit on the whole landmass of Comoros. As for power struggles, those who are powerful with ambition could easily wipe out a country or two and take over if they so wished. There have been instances in the past where a king or a queen angered a person so powerful that the next day their entire family was wiped out and the person they angered took control of the kingdom. I couldn't help but think how cool that is. Of course, I have no wild ambitions to do such things, nor do I wish to wipe out anyone's family. I just want to be strong enough to protect my family from any harm. Faith, all you need to do is follow what I have shown you many times. Channel your mana into the tip of your finger and allow it to form the magic circle. My mother was explaining things to me as I copied her motions. I released a stream of my mana and channeled it down my arm. The process was much simpler than I had thought. I figured it would take me a few tries to channel my mana the way I wanted, but it turned out to be very simple. It was no different than me wanting to move a finger. As soon as I thought about my mana moving to the tip of my finger, the mana all rushed to that point and patiently waited for me to give it its next order. I then proceeded to give my mana the instructions on what I wanted it to do, and soon the magic circle began to form in front of me. I first started with the conditions of what I wanted the magic to do, which was to fill the bucket on the ground in front of me with water. Then I began adding in the runic equation and the activation word. This was the slowest part of the process, and I already knew this spell would not cast, but I decided it would be best to take things slow so I would not suddenly cause a huge explosion or something. Although I am using a water spell, there was no telling what might happen if I was not careful. Rune after rune began to appear on the magic circle, and my mother watched from the side with an approving look. She seemed to have noticed I was taking my time and being careful. Knowing her, she would definitely yell at me if I went too fast. After a few minutes, I was finally able to finish my magic circle and add it in the activation word. Finished. Let me check it. My mother knelt down and inspected the entire magic circle before nodding her head. It's perfect. Very well done. Now this time, do it faster so it can be activated. Seeing my mother smile so brightly when I completed something she tasked me to do with such perfection made me happy and a little relieved. Relieved because it meant I could put her worries at ease, even if it was just a little bit. I drew back on my mana and redid the spell once more. This time I did it within 3 seconds. I had a much better feel for how things worked, so I was able to form all the runes very quickly. I am not sure, but I think this has something to do with my intelligence stat. Okay, Faith, go ahead, activate it. My mother announced the golden words, which made me excited to see my first spell finally being activated. I took a deep breath and watched with shining eyes as I spoke the magical words, Fill. A small ball of water began to form as streams of mana flowed out of the magic circle, intertwining with each other. The ball of water slowly began to get bigger and bigger until finally it was the size of a basketball. It slowly moved over the bucket and settled down inside of it before releasing and filling the bucket. I was so happy that my tail was wagging back and forth at an incredible speed. I was filled with so much excitement I couldn't contain my joy and jumped up into the air and shouted, I did it! Very good. To be able to cast a spell on your first try is truly amazing. Faith. Most kids would take a few days before even forming their first magic circle correctly. But you did things so smoothly as if it was second nature to you. I think magic is something you were born to use. As a teacher, I couldn't be more proud of you. And as a mother, not only am I proud but relieved. I hope you will continue to study magic. Only by excelling in something will you be able to stand with your head held high without worrying about anyone trying to look down on you. I guess my mother is really worried about my future. While I can be with them until they grow old and die, after that, I would be left alone. She is worried I will be targeted by those who dislike demi-humans. I can only sigh and look up towards the sky. Even if I am disliked, I will not care. But I should at least accomplish something in my life that will give me a kind of status. This way, my mother and father will be able to be free of worry. I turn my gaze back to my mother and nod in my head. I will work hard and excel at magic to the point no one will be my match. My day continued like this. I trained with the same magic circle, filling the bucket. So many times I lost count. My mother kept asking me how my mana was, and I kept her up to date, saying it was decreasing slowly, even though it was not. At the end of the day, I had dinner and went back to my room and got ready for bed. My brother had come home early since the crop harvest was now in its final stages and not as much work needed to be done. I looked over at him to see him reading a book on magic. I pursed my lips and walked over to the side of his bed and knelt down, rested my head on my arms, and looked up at him. "Brother, can you take me outside tomorrow?" Eric looked over at me with a confused expression and asked, "Did you not go outside today?" "No, I mean outside. I want to walk around outside the yard. I want to go to the edge and look out over the valley below. I want to see the town. I have a lot of wants, I know. I want to do a lot, and I knew I was still too young to do it all. I was old enough to leave the yard, but I knew my mother would probably not let me without an escort, which was why I was currently pleading my case to my brother." Eric looked at me helplessly. It was the same look he always gave me when he was unsure of how to answer me without hurting my feelings. "I will need to talk to mother and father first. If they say yes, I will bring you out for an hour, but not to town just yet." I quickly nodded my head and smiled. My brother was the best. "That's fine. I just want to walk around a bit, then go to sleep. We will talk to them in the morning." When the next day came, I excitedly got up and rushed downstairs to hear words of doom. "No, she is not leaving the yard yet. Eric, it is not that I do not trust you to look after her. It is the others. I do not want them doing anything to my daughter. When she is a little older and can protect herself better, then she can go out." When I walked into the room, my brother gave me an apologetic gaze. I sighed and flopped down into my seat and pouted. I should have known this would have happened, but there was nothing I could do. Mother's words were the law of this house, and in order to not gain her divine wrath, everyone followed her laws to the letter. My mother looked at me and shook her head. She placed her hand on top of my head and said, "It's only for now. We will need to teach you how to use protection spells and attack spells just in case. If you are attacked, you need to be able to defend yourself. I trust you and your brother, but I'm scared about the other villagers. They might not treat you kindly and might try to do you harm." I looked up at my mother and nodded my head. "I understand." And so, my days of magic training began to intensify. I trained day in and day out. I had become somewhat obsessed with it. I would not stop recasting the same spells over and over until I could do them all in under 2 seconds. I have no idea how many times my mother had yelled at me to take a break, but even when I was forced to do so, I would still be thinking of faster and easier ways to cast spells. My goal to instantly cast spells was something I truly wanted to reach. This way, if I ever felt danger, I could quickly cast a protection spell. Even a fraction of a second was a dance between life and death when it came to magic or any attack for that matter. I had already died once, and I refused to do so again, at least until I got to live a fulfilling life. Even now, after spending 7 years in this world, I still think back to that day. I still think back to the time when I rushed out in front of that speeding truck to save my best friend. I will always remember that moment, although a lot of my memories from that time are starting to fade. Sadly, this was just how the brain worked. I'm sure they're still there, hidden deep within the memories banks of my brain, and one day I may recall a scene or two from that time when I run into a similar situation, but for now, I guess it is okay for some of them to fade away. I have been working hard, not only to become strong, but so that I could finally adventure out of my yard. I have learned 3 protection spells. One that is called Earth Armor. This encased the user in a thick layer of earth, protecting them from harm. Then there was Water Shield. Although it was named Shield, it was more of a bubble of water that surrounded the user from fire-based attacks. And lastly, there was my personal favorite, Mana Shield. It was a much more practical shield, and I actually learned this one in secret, because it was a shield that would lower one's mana based on the damage they took. So, basically, with the shield alone, I would be invincible. It was not widely used due to the fact that it consumed mana, but because I seemed to have an endless amount of mana, it was like it was a magic tailor-made for me. No matter the attack, no matter the element, Mana Shield would block the attack with ease. It was as simple as the water spell with how its magic circle was created, which made my cast time for it less than a second. Although not instant, it was pretty close to being instant. For attack spells, I have learned all the basics that my mother would allow me to learn. At least the ones she knows I have learned. I won't go into detail, but I have learned a lot of magic that my family would never believe was possible for a child my age. For 2 long years, I have created a magic circle for every magic spell possible, and thanks to my high intelligence, I can remember them all, as if I was looking at the book while practicing them. I never actually casted the spell itself, as I knew it would not be good, but I have created many magic circles in under 5 seconds, even for the most advanced tiered spells. And so now I was standing in front of my mother with eyes full of hope as I opened my mouth and asked, "Mother, please allow me to go outside the yard and explore." Faith. My mother looked very apprehensive right now, but there was no way she could say I was not ready to leave the yard, or that I was unable to defend myself. She saw for herself my growth. "Mother, I will stay by her side. Faith has behaved and worked hard learning magic, so she could meet your demands, and I hate to admit it, as her brother she excels in not only magic, but also swordsmanship." Ah, my most handsomest brother has come to my rescue. It was true what he said. I have also been learning how to use a sword on top of magic. My brother would learn from the town guards and then teach me. And recently, I have been slowly catching up to Eric in regards to swordsmanship. I'm not sure why, though. I have never used a sword in my life, but it seems to be coming naturally to me. My mother stared at my hopeful eyes before letting out a long, drawn-out sigh. "Okay, but you need to be back before sundown. And Eric, you need to protect your sister no matter what. Do not let others bully her. Even if it is the village elder's nasty grandson, just teach him a lesson. Your father and I will take care of the rest." I almost burst out laughing at my mother's comment. This was because she had chased that brat many times over the past few years for saying mean things to me. But now, if I met him on the outside, I could finally beat him up. But what was most important of all was that my mother said yes. She had said yes, that I could go outside. I once again began jumping for joy. I couldn't contain my excitement. I guess seeing my excitement made my mom happy because those stern eyes from a few seconds ago quickly turned soft. She patted both me and my brother on the head before sending us on our way. As soon as I stepped foot through the gate of our fence, I felt like a bird who was just released from its cage. I happily skipped a little ways forward before stopping and turning to look at my brother. As always, he had a helpless, pampering smile on his face. He has always treated me like a gem. I love him for that. He works hard to help out the family and even trains in the sword so he can teach me. He does so much I can never thank him enough. He walked up to me and grabbed my hand to keep me from running forward. I know after living 16 years of my past life, I was truly acting like a little kid at this time, but I couldn't help it. I had been looking forward to this just as much as I was looking forward to casting magic. "Faith, I know you're excited, but we must be careful. We will head the long way to the cliff so you can finally look out over the valley." I turned my eyes up towards him. He was now 12 years old and was very tall for his age. I felt so short standing next to him, but I guess that's just how it is. My father was also a very tall man, and he takes after my father in some aspects. You could say he was a mini version of my father, except he had the same bleach white hair like myself. With how kind and caring he was, I knew he would definitely have a wonderful wife and family in the future. We made our way along the rocky dirt road. I looked down at my new boots that my mother made for me that were red in color and matched the scales on my tail and smiled. It was my first pair of boots, after all. Since I came to this world, I have always been barefoot, running around. To be honest, it felt weird to be wearing anything on my feet after 7 years, but I'm sure I would be complaining about the rocks if I did not have them. We made our way down the road towards Auntie Finna's house. I had seen her a few times over the fence, walking down the street. She seemed to be a nice lady who always smiled and waved at me. She did not seem to be someone who despised demi-humans like myself. She even once gave me some cookies. It was people like her that still gave me hope that being a demi-human would not be so bad. "Oh, Faith!" I heard a familiar voice call out to me to find Auntie Finna walking over with something in her hands. I already knew what it was because I could smell the freshly baked cookies from where I was standing. I let go of my brother's hand and ran over to Auntie Finna. "Hello, Aunt." I smiled sweetly at her. She was a widow who lost her husband due to a plague that had once run through the village. She was lucky and never caught it, but a lot of people from the village died during those dark days. She never had children, but she was always nice to those around her. Even my mother and father said she was a caring lady who was well-liked throughout the village. She made her living selling baked goods in the village center. My father and mother would also help her out during harvest season, giving her some supplies to last her a few months. It seemed my father was her husband's friend. "You seem to have finally gotten your wish, dear." Auntie Finna smiled brightly at me as she patted my head before pushing a cloth package in my hands. It was warm to the touch, so I already knew they had just come out of the oven. "Take these and snack on them while you look around. And if anyone dares to pick on you, you tell me, and I will give them an earful. I will be sure to tell you if anyone picks on me." I smiled and bowed my head as I said my thanks. "Thank you for these. I will be sure to share them with my brother. You're a good girl, I know. Tell your mother to come over to visit sometime, or I can go over there. We haven't talked much since you were born." Auntie Finna's expression turned a little sad and lonely. I felt bad for her. She was all alone, working hard to keep herself alive. I will be sure to tell her. "Thank you again." I said my goodbyes, and Auntie Finna waved us off as she returned to her house. Now, with freshly baked cookies in hand, I took my brother's hand and continued towards the cliff. "Brother," as we walked, I called out to my brother. I have had something on my mind that I have been meaning to ask him for a long time now, but the timing never seemed right. My brother had given up a lot of his childhood to either help out around the house or keep me company. I felt bad because he could have gone out and played with the other kids in the village. What is it?" Eric looked down at me and asked. He had on his usual brotherly smile. "Am I a nuisance? Am I keeping you from doing the things you want to do?" I asked. Comparing myself to my past life, I felt more needy in this life. I would have been alone most of the day while my brother did his things and my mother did hers. As for my father, sometimes I forget what he looks like as he is always working, but as soon as I see him, I recognize him right away. In my previous life, I could go out and play and do many things with my best friend, but in this life, there was no such thing as I was a demi-human, and people lived much farther apart. When Eric heard my question, he stopped walking and spun me around so that I was looking at him. His eyes seemed to hold a hint of anger in them. "What do you mean? A nuisance?" "Faith, I never once thought of you as a nuisance. You are my baby sister, and I vowed from the day you were born that I would watch over you and protect you. I do what I do to stick to my vow. But you could have gone out and played with the other kids and have fun doing things besides helping me train. It's not like you're stuck doing all these things. I'm not saying I do not appreciate it. In fact, I really feel blessed that you're giving up so much to keep me company, but..." Tears began to form in my eyes. I wanted my handsome, loving brother to be able to have a life that did not revolve around a person that was shunned by the world. Stupid. Eric spat out. I looked up at him and felt pain on the middle of my forehead. He had flicked me pretty hard. I was sure there was a red mark there now. I held my head and looked up at him, wondering what he was going to say. He shook his head and looked up at the sky and let out a sigh. "I would never want to make friends with those idiots. They come by our house, which lies on the outskirts of the village, just to pick on you. Why would I want to play with them? I would rather beat them up and send them packing." "Faith, You seem to not understand that we Cerelia are a family who puts family first above all else. Father has always told me from the day he knew Mother was pregnant that I would need to protect my younger sibling, to make sure that he or she will never feel left alone. He knew that he was always busy and that Mother would always have to do many things around the house. I grew up with this as well. The day you were born, you were so tiny that I was afraid to even get near you. But the first time you gripped my finger, I vowed to be there for you no matter what. So no matter what, if someone picks on you or tries to harm you, you could tell your big brother. I will always defend you even if you were in the wrong. Eric's words were full of warmth and care. He patted my head gently as he spoke, making me want to cry. I had never thought of it that way. I had been selfish in always asking him to keep me company when he wasn't busy. But now that I think about it, I would do the same for him if I was the older sibling. I have always been one to care about those who are close to me. I held back my tears as much as possible as I wiped the ones that had already spilled. I then forced a smile on my face as I hugged my amazing big brother. I won't ask such dumb questions anymore. Good. Now, let's get going. We are almost there. And so we set out on our journey to the cliff edge once more. Although I now wish I never came here. In front of us was the brat of all brats, Trent, and his little gang of goons. Trent had an evil smile on his face as he looked at us. Oh, if it isn't the demon. Eric, did you finally decide to get rid of her? Are you going to toss her over the edge and see if her demon wings will allow her to fly? Trent, watch your words. Village elder's grandson or not, I will still beat you up. You already know you are no match for me. Eric spoke coldly as he drew the sword on his side out while pulling me behind him. I had never seen Eric like this before. I have heard him yelling at the village kids, but never seen him pull out his sword. The air around him changed altogether. It was much different than when we would spar in the backyard. Trent's expression turned serious once Eric drew his sword. Eric, you should know better than to draw your weapon unless you are willing to face the consequences. With a wave of Trent's hand, the 5 other boys behind him also drew out their weapons. It was normal for kids 7 and older to carry a short sword on their waist to protect themselves in case of any monsters. But right now there were no monsters around, unless you counted me. But I was too cute to be a monster. I would not draw my weapon if you were not acting so viciously. What has my baby sister done to you that calls for you to always pick on her? She has not even left my family's yard until today. Eric seemed ready for a fight, but I knew he could not take on 6 people at the same time. There was just no way. He may be good with his sword, but the most he could take on would be 3 people, even if they were amateurs. Brother, let's just leave. I pulled on his shirt to get his attention. I may be able to deal with the situation on my own because I had a mana shield, but I could not protect my brother at the same time. I was able to use many kinds of magic, but to actually use it in combat was something I had yet to do, and I did not know how good my control would be just yet. I will say that I really wanted to beat this kid up right now, but not when he had 6 people backing him up with swords. It would only take 1 stab to kill any of us. Eric looked down at me, who looked back up at him with pleading eyes and nodded his head. Let's go. You think you could just leave, Eric? You drew your sword on us and want to leave. Trent seemed hell-bent on causing us trouble no matter what. My point of being nice and trying to settle things without violence was reaching its max. I did not wish to accidentally kill anyone, but they were starting to push their luck. And to be completely honest, I did not know how I would react if I did kill someone. I normally stayed away from those who thought ill of me. Even in my past life, I would not associate with those who did not like me or would hurt others for no reason. But as I went a step forward, my brother pushed me back. He looked at me and smiled as he said, "Ignore them. We will just go." With that, Eric turned around and grabbed my hand, pulling me along. I knew Eric was worried something bad would happen. I could feel the sweat of his palm as he gripped my hand tightly. "Hold it right there. Take 1 more step, and I will fry both of you with my fireball." I was done. He threatened to burn us. I could stand being made fun of. I could easily brush that all off, but now he made a threat on my and my brother's life. This was something I would never stand for. I pulled away from my brother, turned around, and stretched out my hand. A red magic circle began to form at an incredible speed. I took a deep breath and began speaking the activation word. Fariba. I never got to finish saying the activation word because Eric had covered my mouth. Faith. Let's go. You. I heard Trent yell out behind us. There seemed to be a tremble in his voice. I guess he never expected my spell casting to be so fast. Eric, stop right there. Let's settle this once and for all. Let's bet. Both Eric and I once again stopped in our tracks and turned around to see an angered Trent standing there pointing at us. Eric stepped forward and once again pulled me behind him. I was not sure if this was to protect me or to protect the 6 boys who seemed to be staying further back than before. What kind of bet? Trent looked around. It seemed he had not come up with what to bet on. A race. We will race. We will race from this cliff to the forest edge on the other side of town. Whoever can run to the forest edge and back will be the winner. If you win, I will leave your sister alone, but if I win, that monster needs to leave our village. Trent, do not push it. My sister is not to be in any part of any bet. My brother yelled. While my brother was against it, I had a different idea. We can bet, but I want a second condition for when I win. Since you brought up the idea for the bet, I am sure you will not mind if I add a second winning condition on our part. Trent's rage-induced eyes landed on me. He smirked and said, Fine, name your condition. I will agree to it, but the person racing will be you. No, I will. I cut my brother off. I knew he wanted to take my place, but I figured with my current agility, there was no way any of them would catch me, especially if I applied a wind spell to my body to make me faster. That's fine, I accept. My condition is if I win, you will stand there and receive a beating from me. You. Trent's eyes widened. It seemed he never thought I would make such a condition. But this worked out perfectly for me, because if I beat him up due to our bet, then he couldn't run home and tell his grandfather I beat him up out of nowhere, even though I have every right to. Faith. Even my brother seemed to be a little taken aback by my condition. I only looked up at him and stuck my tongue out. Seeing me joke around seemed to have caused him to relax as he chuckled and placed his palm on my head. How sure are you that you can win? 100%. I answered without hesitation. I mean, my agility was at 30. I can guarantee that I was the strongest person here. I just hit it well. When I looked over at Trent, I could see the slight worry in his eyes. I chuckled inwardly. To me, it seemed he was not completely sure he would not suffer a defeat and have to be beaten up by the very person he kept calling a monster. As for losing, well, it never crossed my mind. Since you are 100% sure, then I will not stop you. But Faith, no matter what, you must win. If you were to bring up this bet to his grandfather, we may be in for some trouble. My brother seemed to be worried about the outcome if I lost, but I was not worried in the slightest. The only way they could beat me is if they were faster than me. And by looking at the kids in front of me, not a single one would be able to beat me. I mean, I would be using magic to make myself faster anyways. With the okay from my brother, I pointed my finger at Trent with a smug smile on my face. Since things are settled, let's do this. Fine. Everyone, line up. Trent yelled at the brats behind him. I snickered because I knew he would not play fair. He challenged me, but wanted even his friends to take part in the race. Sadly, I never said that Trent could be the only one to race. Not that it mattered. 7 of us all lined up on the road. This road led through the outskirts of the town all the way to the forest edge. From there, we would then turn around and race all the way back. I looked over at Eric, who was standing off to the side with a worried expression, and smiled at him. Brother, you call the start of the race. Eric nodded and walked to the edge of the road and raised his hand. On your marks. Get set. Go. He lowered his hand to signal the start of the race, and I, of course, went to take off only to feel my foot being entangled with someone else's, causing me to fall face first onto the ground. Ouch! Cheaters! I cried out as I looked over at the young boy next to me, who was one of Trent's minions, with a cold glare. He quickly looked away, not daring to meet my eyes. My nose, hands, and knees were now scratched up. Luckily, I did not get a nosebleed. Ignoring the stinging pain, I quickly got up and chased after the other boys. I only got a few feet away when I heard someone crying behind me. I didn't even need to turn around and know my brother did something to the kid who tripped me. But this was perfect since no one was paying attention to me. I closed my eyes and opened them again. Green magic circles began to form in my eyes. Wind rush. I had learned through practice while trying to keep my special magic circle training a secret how to form the magic circles on my eyes instead of needing to generate them in the air in front of me. This helped a lot in hiding my special training. It was also a good way to not let your enemy know you were casting magic. As soon as I said the activation word, my speed increased by tenfold. Wind Rush was a spell that removed the wind resistance on the body, allowing a person to be much faster than normal. In no time at all, I sped past the boys who thought they were winning. I ran so fast that everything seemed like a blur around me except what I was seeing straight ahead. It was a form of tunnel vision. In no time at all, I arrived at the forest edge. I turned to look to see if anyone was behind me, but I couldn't even see a shadow of the other boys. Humph! Can't even keep up. You want to make bets against me. I hope you all go bald. After letting off some steam, I began running back. I didn't even get a chance to take in the sights around me, since I was only concentrating on winning the race. By the time I reached my brother, no more than 10 minutes had passed. Huh, I won. And they ran away, my brother said as he walked over to me. He shook his head and sighed. As soon as their plan to make you trip and fall failed and you passed them, they all ran into the village instead of continuing the race. Humph, he can hide for now, but the next time I see him, I will make him live up to his bet. I shook my fist in the air, causing my brother to laugh. I took care of the one who tripped you. How are your wounds? Eric looked at my red knees, which still had traces of blood on them. My health only dropped by a point, so it was nothing serious. Nothing to worry about. They only sting. Let's finish what we came here to do. I had originally come here to look out over the cliff. I did not wish to leave until I did. So now that the brats were gone, I could finally enjoy my reason for coming here. I took my brother's hand and led him towards the cliff edge. I can say now that all the hassle was worth it. The view from the cliff is absolutely breathtaking. The low-lying clouds that hung just past the cliff's edge over the vast valley below made the scenery very beautiful. I sat on the edge with my brother beside me and pulled out the cookies I got from Auntie Finna and snacked on them while wagging my tail and kicking my legs back and forth. I thought I would be afraid of heights, but for some reason, I did not fear sitting on the edge like this. I did not get any vertigo or anything like that, which I found weird as I was once scared of heights in my past life. I wondered if that fear was washed away when I was reborn because of my race or for some other reason. At any rate, even though things were hectic today, I could still call today a good day. I was able to stick it to the bullies and make those brats run away. I wonder if they would find trouble for me anytime soon. But today did make me realize that I needed to practice magic more, which meant I would need to find a secret spot to practice, as I was someone who could not really die from being attacked by anything, as much as I could figure anyway. As long as I used my mana shield and my mana never went down, then I could easily go deep into the forest and train there. Maybe I could also finally level up some. But the question was, how was I going to do it without needing an escort? To be honest, I wanted to tell my family about my system thing and how I had infinite mana, but I did not know if they would believe me, as there did not seem to be any record of such a thing. At least not from the books I have read anyway. Well, maybe they would believe me, but if word got out somehow that I was a freak of nature and someone tried to use it against my family or myself, I would not only put them in danger, but myself. This was why I decided to keep this a secret for the time being. But that still leaves me with trying to figure out how to get into the forest for training without needing to drag my brother along. Faith, my brother called out to me. I turned to look at him with a puzzled expression. How did you run so fast? I wasn't going to ask, but it still puzzles me how you were so quick. The forest is at least an hour away on foot. But not only did you run there, but you ran back and in such a short time frame. It seems I went a bit too far without realizing it. Now, this is troublesome. I wonder how I should explain this. I knew if I took too long to answer, I would end up looking more suspicious, and I only had one excuse I could think of. I lowered my head and twiddled my fingers as I answered Eric's question. Don't tell Mother, but I have been secretly learning a few intermediate spells. I used Wind Rush on myself to make myself faster. I waited and waited, but yet my brother did not answer me. Only after what seemed like an hour, but was in reality only a minute or two that went by did I finally lift my head to see him staring at me in disbelief. He raised his finger and pointed at me, a loss for words. You. Ha 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 ha. I wished I saw Trent's face as he ran by. I could only see his back, but when you charged right past him, he froze, and only after you were far ahead of him did he turn and run towards the village. My guess is that he knew if he stayed and let you beat him up that he would suffer badly. Let's hope this will be a lesson to him, and that he will no longer try to bother you anymore. Brother, you are not mad that I learned spells I should not have? I asked. I was worried about him telling Mother. She was an angel when she was in a good mood, but turned into a demon when she was in a bad mood. If my mother knew that I had been using intermediate spells without her permission, she would spank my bottom. Why would I be mad? I already know how great your control over magic is. I also know you have a great deal of mana. So I'm not worried about you getting sick from casting a spell, as long as you do not cast something that will drain it all up in one go, like Grand Fall or something like that. My brother reached out and patted my head. Don't worry. I won't say anything to Mother. I know you're worried about that, but I will never tell on you. Hearing him make such a declaration made me purse my lips. Lies. You told Mother that time. I tried to cast a fireball on my own. My butt really hurt after that, you know. Dash. That. I watched as Eric's cheeks turned red as he scratched his nose. Humph. Caught in your own lie. He's lucky he is my brother, or I would beat him up. If you add up all the years I have been alive in this life and my past, it is like I am over 20. I, a 20-year-old, was spanked by my mother on my bare bottom. One of the most humiliating experiences in my 2 lives. I didn't think she would spank you. Sorry. They say to forgive and show compassion. Since it was his only time actually getting me in trouble, I will let it slide. I will forgive you, but only this one time. Of course, I still had to put on a show that I am being reluctant, otherwise he might tell on me again, and I would need to undergo the red bottom technique my mother seems to have mastered. My first trip outside ended on a good note. I was able to see an amazing view that made me realize just how expansive this world truly was. Maps and pictures can never truly allow you to grasp the size of the world around you. You need to look out and see the far distant mountains that would be months away if you try to travel there. But now, my concern was how to find a proper place to really practice my spells without being under the watchful eyes of my family. I could try asking my brother, but there is no way he would allow me to enter the forest. I could go near the forest entrance because it was relatively safe, but I could not go into the forest on my own. He would immediately say something to our mother. If I could just go outside on my own, I mumbled under my breath. If I was able to roam around by myself, things would be so much easier. You say something? My brother asked. I just hope he did not hear what I said instead of just pretending he didn't. Either way, there was nothing I could do about it if he did. As long as I was not caught, there was nothing he could do. No, just talking to myself, I replied with a smile, trying to wave off the conversation. But I was still in a dilemma. I needed to practice my magic and learn to fight against real monsters and hopefully level up. I was not sure if this would work, but it was something I had to deal with sooner or later. I would rather not wait until later in case something happens and I need to fight. Without proper practice, it would be very bad. I already accepted the fact that being a demi-human would not make my life easy, but that did not mean I would allow others to look down on me. When we got home, my mother had already heard about the race with Trent. It seemed no matter what, in a small village, not much goes unnoticed and will always make its rounds. Even if my mother is someone who is normally home all the time, she will still hear everything going on in the village. Plus, we were not very quiet while yelling at each other. Are you too stupid? My mother yelled, causing both me and my brother to flinch. How could you accept such a bet? Faith, do you not understand what it would have meant if you were kicked out of the village? He is the village elder's grandson. He only needs to tell them that you made a bet, and the results would need to be upheld. We would all end up needing to move. But we didn't lose. I tried to plead my case, but my mother's glare quickly shut me up. Faith, it is not about winning or losing. You made a bet that if those brats actually did win, they would make a fuss until the bet was upheld and you actually left the village. Your father, me, and your brother would all need to leave with you because there is no way we would allow you to suffer alone. Don't do such stupid things in the future. Also, Eric, you are also just as guilty in this because you did not stop your sister. My mother finished with a long, drawn-out sigh. She looked at the two of us and shook her head. You too are getting older. You need to be responsible for your actions. Now tell me, Faith, when and where did you learn intermediate spells? Huh? My mother's question stunned me. I have no idea if my mother is clairvoyant or not, but she somehow knew I used an intermediate spell. Don't try to lie to me either. You tripped and fell, which gave you a late start. You may be fast, but those boys would have done so much more to you if you try to run past them. Plus, the locals saw you reaching the forest in a short amount of time. The only way for you to do such a thing is to use a spell called Wind Rush, which is an intermediate spell. Now explain to me, when did you learn this spell? Ugh, why did my mother need to be so smart? She knew everything, and she wasn't even there. This is so unfair. I read it in the books. She knew I had read all the magic books in the house, so this was a given. Reading and practicing are two different things. Wind Rush is a complicated spell that requires almost 30 runic equations. Now tell me, when did you practice this spell? Do you know the dangers of using spells that could deplete your mana? Faith, you could die from mana exhaustion. Seeing my mother's worried yet angry expression made me realize she was not so much as mad at me for casting the spell, but worried that I could harm myself from casting such magic too early. Mother, you told me yourself that my life would not be easy as I am a demi-human. Having more spells to protect myself is better than not having enough. Wind Rush allows me to move at an extremely fast speed, allowing me to get away from anyone who is trying to harm me. Plus, you know I have higher than average mana. So how would it harm me? I pouted my lips. I never talked back to my mother before, but this time I did because I keep being told my life will be hard, yet she gets mad when I try to better myself. Faith, that is not what I am saying. My mother sighed as she looked at me. I could see the pain in her eyes. You are growing up much faster than I would have liked. The conversation ended there. I'm not sure if my mother was feeling guilty or not, but she seemed to not want to talk about the subject anymore. I knew she was saying all this out of her care and concern for me, but I only had so much time until I was eventually going to be an adult. The more I learned now, the more ready I was, the better it would be for me in the future. I think she realizes this, but still wishes for me to always be her little girl. That night, I went to the kitchen area when my mother was alone and hugged her from behind. I'm sorry. I should have told you ahead of time. Faith. My mother turned around and hugged me tightly. I just want you to always be safe. I know you have a huge weight on your shoulders, and I wish there was something I could do to relieve that, but unfortunately, your mother is too weak. And, hello, author here. Since no one reads author notes, I decided to add this here. I'm looking for your input on this novel, so please leave a comment letting me know. Thanks. I was surprised to see such a side of my mother. She was always standing strong. Even in the face of my father when he got mad over something, she would always win. She was like a war maiden from the heavens who came to vanquish the demons who plagued the land. While I miss my parents from my past life, in this life, Lilith Cerelia was my mother, and a loving and caring one at that. She was the reason I could grow up happy, even though I was different from the others. And seeing her like this did not sit well with me. I hugged her tighter and buried my face in the nape of her neck. You're far from being weak. Only a strong mother could have birthed my brother. My mother seemed to find my jab at my brother funny. Faith, no matter what happens in the future, your family will always be behind you. I know. I just know I do not have much time before I reach adulthood and want to be ready. I cannot always weigh you and father down. I will need to venture out into the world and find a place where I can work and settle down. It felt saddening to say such things, but it was the truth. While I still had a solid 8 years left, that was still only 8 years. I needed to prepare for what was to come way in advance. My mother looked at me with watery eyes and let out another sigh. This was something she does a lot as of late, and it was mostly because of me. You are right. You need to begin to understand the world around you more. While I can teach you things without actual experience, you will never be able to truly understand the world you live in. I will not restrict you anymore. But Faith, promise me you will never go too far. I know you wish to be stronger, but you must never use a spell that is too powerful. Otherwise, you will end up exhausting your mana, and without anyone around, You could be left vulnerable or die altogether. So always be careful. Make sure you keep a close eye on how much mana you have left. Always keep some in reserve to use Wind Rush so you can run away. Dash. Hearing my mother's words, I almost jumped for joy, knowing I could now go out on my own, but I knew now was no time to be celebrating. My mother was saying all these things because of how much she cared about me. There was no way I would not be emotional even if I was excited at the same time. I will make sure I always have plenty of mana to spare. I think this was one promise I would never need to break, at least I hope for the time being. I spent the next few days sticking to my mother like glue, helping her with whatever I could, although she did kick me outside a few times. But the soft smile on her lips showed that she knew I was doing it for her. I just wanted her to know that I was not trying to grow up too fast and that I still wished to be by her side. She was my mother, after all. Today was a new day, and the songbirds were once again singing. It was one of the things I liked about waking up around here was the sound of these birds. It made me feel at home, at peace. I was not sure how the sounds of other places were, but in this small house where my father, my mother, and my brother lived, it was a place that made me feel safe. Today's goal was to head out to the wheat field to visit my father. I never got to see him much, so I planned to go out and visit him, even if it is for only a few minutes. I just hope those working with him do not start saying anything bad to me. But knowing my father and how he was, he would probably beat them up if they did. When he heard that Trent was calling me names over the fence, my mother and brother had to hold him back and talk him down from racing over to the brat's house and giving him a good spanking. He was not a violent person unless it came to his family, and it seemed the villagers went out of their way to not anger him. "Mother, I'm leaving," I yelled out to my mom as soon as I put my boots on. I was just about to open the door when I was yanked back by the scruff of my shirt. "You need to eat breakfast first. The outside world will be there when you are done. Plus, I need you to bring something to your father and brother for me." My mother pulled me right to the kitchen and made me sit down. I could only purse my lips and eat my breakfast. Now I know what she said was true, but I just couldn't wait. I wanted to see my father and then begin exploring. My task today that I had laid out for myself was to head out to the forest. I had to find out if I could level up or not. And I also needed to actually see just how strong I truly was. I mean, if I got to level 2 or 4 today, wouldn't that mean I could triple my stats if I let my mana trickle out? Just thinking about it excited me. After a quick breakfast and kissing my mother goodbye, I raced off towards the wheat fields. They were not far from my house, only a little ways down the road. In fact, they were on the same road my house resided on. I made my way past Auntie Finna's house and quickly arrived at the wheat field owned by my family. The tall, golden field of wheat made it almost impossible to find anyone in it, especially for me who was, well, short. I really didn't know how to find them, so I could only walk back and forth trying to see if I could see them, but I ended up having to resort to jumping up and down until I saw my father on the left side of the field. "Father!" I yelled out while jumping and waving. I guess my voice carried over well because I saw my father look in my direction, and when he saw me, his lips curled up into a big smile. "Faith, stay there. I will be right over." Hearing my father's words, I stopped jumping up and down and waited patiently. In no time at all, I saw my father running over, and before I could even react, he picked me right up and lifted me into the air, spinning me around. My baby girl is getting so big." My father wrapped his big muscular arms around me, almost squeezing me to death. But I still loved it. I might not get to see him much, but I would sometimes hear my father coming home, and the first thing he would ask was how I was doing. He was always concerned about my well-being. I wrapped my skinny arms around his neck and gave him a big kiss on the cheek. This action seemed to tickle his funny bone because he had a huge grin on his face as he let out a loud laugh. "What brings you out here today?" my father asked as he looked at the basket that was sitting on the ground. "Well, I wanted to come see you, and since I was already coming, Mother gave me this basket to give to you. She said it was yours and brother's breakfast." I answered with a sweet smile. She even made the brat some food too." My father pursed his lips as he turned to look out over the field. "Brat, get over here. Your sister brought us breakfast." "Faith did." I heard my brother's voice from within the wheat field and soon saw his head poke up. He was almost as tall as my father, and he was only 12. I was starting to feel left behind. My short stature, compared to the rest of my family, was starting to become a kind of issue for me. I had learned that demi-human's growth was slower than others. My father told me that dragonkin have a longer lifespan than humans. At first, this bothered me, but gradually I slowly began to accept it. But then I heard from my mother that those with high mana also live longer lives. If you take into consideration that my mana had a big fat infinity sign on it, wouldn't that mean I could basically live forever? Of course, I did not wish to die too soon, but the thought of living forever. I was not sure how I felt about that just yet. I guess I will only know by trying it once. After chatting while my father and brother had their breakfast, I took the basket back to the house and headed out once more. My next destination was the forest. The only thing was I needed to somehow sneak my way there. If the other villagers see me going towards the forest, they will know that I am up to something. So I can only try to find a way around the entire village without being caught. And the only way I know of is to run along the cliff down the backside of the far side of the village. If I use Wind Rush, I should be able to arrive in no time at all as long as I do not run into anyone, that is. I made my way over to the cliffside, where I stopped to take in the amazing view once more. Although this is my second time seeing this view, it was still very breathtaking. Seeing such an untouched land with no buildings or visible civilization was just amazing. I was not sure how things were more inland, but here on the outskirts of the kingdom, it was so sparse that if there was a village down there, it was not visible for me anyway. I sat on the cliff edge for about an hour just to take in the sights before finally continuing my trip to the far side of the village. This side of the village was more rocky and unsuitable for farming, so there was nothing but large boulders here and there. This gave me perfect cover as I raced toward the forest. Once I reached the forest edge and stepped past the tree line, I finally came to a stop behind a large tree and breathed a sigh of relief. As far as I could tell, I did not pass anyone, so I should not have been seen. This meant I had quite a few hours to allow myself to test out the limits of my strength and the system itself. I did not hesitate to cast a mana shield around myself. This shield would last until my mana ran out or I canceled it. Just to be safe, I kept a close eye on my mana bar. Now that I was protected, it was now time for me to begin venturing deeper into the forest. But before I took another step, I used the short sword at my side to carve a mark in the tree. It was a wonderful picture of the amazingly popular Mellow Kitty from Earth. Not that I had a lot of Mellow Kitty merchandise or anything in my past life. Only a shelf or two. I ran deeper into the forest, which surprisingly looked quite normal to me, similar to a forest you would find on Earth. I was actually expecting glowing plants and little balls of magical lights floating up into the sky, but alas, I only got bushes, trees, and bugs. There were some overly sized mushrooms that came up to my waist, but that was about the most interesting thing I'd seen thus far. From what I read, the forests of this world were usually broken down into sections. They had the edge of the forest, which, depending on the forest, could be from anywhere from a few feet to hundreds of feet. This area was relatively safe, and unless searching for food, monsters never really ventured out to this area. And if they did, they would be heading to the village anyway. Then there was the first boundary where the weak monsters normally roamed. If I were to put things level-wise, you could say level 1 to 5 monsters roamed this area. Of course, these are all my own assumptions. The second boundary was where monsters stronger than the level 1 to 5 roamed. I really can't give an exact level range on such monsters since, from what I read, the power of monsters in this second boundary relied solely on how powerful the monsters in the core region were. I have no clue how strong such monsters were when I think about it. Should I ever be scared of such monsters? I mean, infinity mana, mana shield. I probably shouldn't get ahead of myself without knowing these things for sure. I continued forward until I felt the air around me begin to change. I could now hear the calls of some of the beasts within the forest. I slowed down to a stop and began looking around me before slowly proceeding on. This would be my first time ever seeing a monster, never mind actually trying to kill one. Right now, I can only hope to put what I practice to actual use. If it was not for my mana shield and my assumption of having infinity mana, I would not even come close to even thinking about trying to fight a monster until I had proper training in doing so. I may be excited and want to figure out my system after waiting 7 long years. But that did not mean I did not value my little life. Whether I will have a tough life as a demi-human or not, I did not care. I planned to make the best out of this new chance of life that I was given. If I am shunned from villages, towns, and cities, then I will just roam the land and become a vagabond. I had no true goals except being strong enough to protect everything I cared about. Oh, and beating up Trent. I will not give up until I finally give him a good beating. While lost in my own inner monologue, I paused my steps when I heard the sound of rustling coming from a nearby bush. I quickly got into a fighting stance, ready to fight at any time. My tail swayed slowly behind me as my eyes locked onto the bush that was shaking. I narrowed my eyes and lowered my body slightly, waiting for the moment for whatever it was to come out of the bush. A bead of sweat trickled down my forehead as I nervously waited. I never thought that coming out to fight monsters would be so nerve-wracking. What seemed like hours was only mere seconds. I took a deep breath and held it in before slowly releasing it as I tried to calm my nerves. At least my wait was not too long. Seconds later, as soon as an object exited the bush, I struck out. My eyes closed subconsciously as a warm liquid squirted on my face and a loud, pained squeak was heard. Feeling something was off, I opened my eyes to see my sword had run through a brown rabbit with floppy ears. It had a cute button nose that probably wiggled back and forth when it was hopping around. And I almost teared up seeing the cute yet lifeless body at the end of my sword. Mr. Rabbit, I'm sorry. I killed such a cute creature. After almost bursting out into tears, I suddenly noticed a nub on top of the rabbit's head. Is this a horned rabbit? Horned rabbit killed. Experience +5. Area quests unlocked. Area quest: kill 10 horned rabbits. Rewards: experience +200. As I was inspecting the horned rabbit, a blue transparent window popped up in front of me with a bunch of messages on it. Area quest. I tilted my head while looking at the screen that asked me to kill 10 horned rabbits for an extra 200 experience. I couldn't help but smile when I saw such an amazing thing. 200 free experience points for killing cute monsters. Done deal. It may sound horrible, but from what I know, even though horned rabbits looked cute, they could easily skewer a human, instantly killing them if the human was not on guard. Horned rabbits were very good at finding the vital points on their prey, almost as if they had a kind of vital point radar. They were also meat eaters, meaning the fluffy rabbits back on Earth who looked cute nibbling on carrots and lettuce leaves could not compare to the cute meat-eating deadly horned rabbit. This species of rabbit would most likely kill off any Earth rabbit. The scary thing about horned rabbits is while they looked cute, they were also pack hunters, meaning if there is one, then there was sure to be a few more. I turned my head to see 3 more horned rabbits hop out of the bush and look at me with their cute beady eyes. This was definitely going to be a torture session, that was for sure. While I did wish to test my mana shield, I did not wish to test actually getting hurt, so I was never going to purposely allow anything to attack me. I heard one of the horned rabbits let out a squeak before launching itself towards me. But what surprised me was that it did not seem fast at all. It was as if it was moving in slow motion. I have no idea if this was because I was focusing on it or if it was due to it being hostile to me, but I knew that what was happening right now did not seem right. I was easily able to dodge the attack and counter it by running my blade through its body. Horned rabbit killed. Experience +5. 2 out of 10 horned rabbits killed. A few messages popped up signaling my quest progress and experience gain. Luckily, it was not in the middle of my vision, but at the top peripheral just right on my status bars. But I really had no time to care about it, as I dodged the next horned rabbit and once again killed it, causing more messages to pop up. I did, however, find it funny that while it was showing me how much experience I gained, there was no experience bar to tell me how close to level I was. You would think such a thing would be mandatory with an experience-based system, but then again, I have what seemed like infinity mana, so my system was probably bugged out. A few seconds later, I had killed all the horned rabbits that had appeared, giving my current progress of horned rabbits killed an amazing 4 out of 10. I still needed to find 6 more horned rabbits. Luckily, this type of monster, from what I heard, was abundant within the forest, and I hate to say it, but I do believe I have eaten its meat quite a few times. It also made me feel a little bad for not being able to bring them home. At least then their deaths would be for a good reason other than my experience points. 10 out of 10 horned rabbits killed. Area quest. Kill 10 horned rabbits complete. Rewards. Experience plus 200. Level up. Level 1-2. Status points 0-5. Skill system unlocked. Skill points 0-1. As I killed the 10th horned rabbit, a string of messages popped up in front of me. I actually began jumping for joy when I saw the level up message, but calmed myself when I saw the last of the messages talking about a skill system. I looked around before hastily leaving the area in order to find a safe place to sit. In the end, I decided to climb a tree where I would be out of sight. I wanted to know what this skill system was all about. No information, but a comprehensive skill tree. Let's see: appraisal, mining, leatherworking, even herbalism. I see. So by skill, it was not talking about spells or anything like that, but actual skills themselves. I pursed my lips as I looked at each tree. It was kind of like a profession system you would see in an RPG. It had item, crafting, and many other things, even fishing. Like, let's take fishing, for example. If I were to stick a point into it, I would automatically learn how to fish any kind of fish, and my rate of catching fish would be increased slightly. If I continued popping points into the tree, my skill in fishing would improve. This is really handy. It was not just 1 or 2 skill trees, but hundreds. There were even skill trees for commanding armies. Not that I ever think I would end up commanding an army, but you never know. Life can take strange twists and turns. After all, I was reborn in another world. I never in my life would have ever thought such a thing was possible. Never mind being reborn in another world with a system. I went through all the skills that were currently there and decided on taking appraisal, as it was the only thing really useful to a 7-year-old me. Once I selected my skill, I took a look at my status screen. Name: Faith Cerelia. Age 7. Level 2. Race Dragonkin. HP 300 of 300. MP Infinity. Status points 5. Strength 30 plus. Vitality 30 plus. Intelligence 30 plus. Mind Infinity. Agility 30 plus. Skill points 0. Skills. Appraisal. LVL 1. I decided not to use my status points just yet. I wanted to check to see if the mana trickle would once again up my stats for me, as well as checking to see that if they do cap at 60, what would happen if I added the points to an already maxed out stat. What I did notice, though, was that there were plus signs next to each stat except my mind stat. This gave me more evidence that my mana and mind stat was definitely infinity. Of course, I would still be careful not to overdo it too much unless it was necessary. Since that is all settled, let's test this appraisal skill. There was no special keyword or anything like that. Skills were done by knowing. Like if I had put a point into forging and picked up a hammer used in forging, I would instantly know what to do. At least, this is what I was getting while reading the skill tree descriptions. Appraisal only said by focusing on an object, I could get detailed information on the said object. So I plucked a leaf from the branch next to me and began focusing on it. Soon a small window appeared in front of me. Leaf. A leaf from a tree. Seeing the tiny bit of information about the leaf, I decided to check my sword as well. Short iron sword. Attack 5 to 15. A short sword made of iron. Perfect for beginners. Oh, this actually surprised me. I did not expect this much information. It even gave the sword's attack power. The more I learned about this system, the more game-like it got. But that was fine as well, since it would help me in the long run. Time to try to level up again. After I jumped down from the tree, I made my way over to where I had killed the horned rabbits. A few seemed to have been dragged off by other monsters, but with the few that remained, I focused on them to see if anything would come up. Horned rabbit, deceased. Type beast. Attack 1 to 5. Level 1. A low-level monster that is quick and uses its long horn to attack its prey's vitals. So they were level 1. I scratched my head and tried to do some math on what I should expect from higher-level monsters, but I was still lacking experience fighting anything but horned rabbits to really make any kind of guess. While they seemed to have been moving in slow motion, this could be due to the level the system was giving them. If that was the case, anything of a lower or same level might be slow compared to, let's say, a level 3 or 4 monster. But without fighting a higher-level monster, it was all speculation and nothing I could really base anything off of. That being said, I realized not once have I used magic. All right, I will use magic in my next fight as well. I had two goals for coming here. One was to level up, while the other was to practice my magic and begin experimenting with magic in out-of-the-norm ways. I have pretty much understood the runic equations and how they work, so I wanted to go a step further and begin creating my own magic. Although I have already taken a step towards that with my magic circles being formed in my eyes instead of out in front of me. Eventually, I wanted to crack the code for instant magic. There had never been any records of anyone creating magic circles in their eyes. So I was not sure if this was something I came up with myself or if others were able to do it as well. It was a process I created that used my eyes as the finger, channeling my mana through my pupils to draw the circles in my eyes. The magic circles were smaller, so with the combination of the two, I was able to generate the output of magic needed to actually cast the spell. But this required precise arrangement and needed interlocking mana connections between the eyes. Without the connections, they would not be able to cast anything, no matter how much mana is pumped in a magic circle. I also figured out how to up the power of magic spells through this process. I have yet to test it out, but I could, in theory, make a fireball 10 times hotter and more destructive with more mana and a small adjustment to the mana input runic equation. Luckily, messing around with magic circles would not cause any kind of magic to appear out of nowhere. There seemed to be some fundamental law that says that an activation word was needed. Of course, I haven't delved far enough into the runic equations to see if it was possible to remove the activation word just yet. I was still learning and testing theories, using my knowledge of all the novels I have read in my past life to bring out new ideas that might not have been thought up yet in this world or have, but never tested. Not that it mattered, as I was only doing these things as my hobby and did not care about telling others about my findings. Trade secrets should never be given away. This was my train of thought. I didn't dare go too deep into the forest, but I still did not wish to be too close to the edge of it either, as it would raise the risk of me being spotted by the villagers. If I ever got caught, it would be the end of my excursion outside alone, this much I knew. At least until I got older anyway. But as of now, I could not let that happen. I had 8 years to level up as much as possible and learn as much as I could about magic. I was currently looking for more horned rabbits. While I knew they would not give me much experience, they were still good practice for my magic. And as they say, always start off small before trying to go big. It did not take me long to find another group of horned rabbits. I quickly charged right in and began forming the magic circle. As I went to pass the group of horned rabbits, I stretched out my hand and softly spoke the activation word. Fireball! A blaze of fire rotated in front of me before shooting out towards the horned rabbits. Within seconds, a loud explosion was heard, causing the leaves on the bushes and trees to flutter. Boom! Horned rabbit killed. Experience +5. Horned rabbit killed. Experience +5. Horned rabbit killed. Experience +5. Multiple notifications spammed me at the top of my vision as I stood rooted and looked at the small crater in the ground. I had seen my mother cast a fireball before, but it was nowhere near as destructive as this. This was just insane. A crater about 3 feet deep, smoking and melted rock, charred earth, and horned rabbit remains. Bushes and trees on fire. It was a scene of great destruction. Wait, water ball. I had sweat dripping from my brow as I put out the fire. I need to be more careful with fire magic in a forest. I just hope the smoke from the fire does not bring a bunch of villagers here. But to be safe, I knew I should quickly escape the scene. And so that I would not be caught, I could only go deeper into the forest. I just never expected that after running for 10 minutes, that I would be faced with such a challenge out of nowhere. Skeletal tiger. Type undead. Attack 60 to 80. Level 5. An undead monster that spreads rotting plague to its targets. Something I never thought I would ever see in my entire life is an undead creature moving around like the zombie movies you would see in the theaters and on TV back on Earth. But here, standing in front of me, was a tiger skeleton moving around on its own. Its glowing, eerie blue eyes and ghostly fire that came up from its neck creating a mane unlike anything you would see on a lion. Even though this skeletal tiger was at a low level, I was still wary about fighting with it. I had read about these kinds of monsters in a book. Undead monsters were many times more powerful than their counterparts. And it was not just their strength that needed to be feared, but the rotting plague that was inflicted on anyone who was harmed by it. Just like in those zombie movies, those bitten by a zombie would turn into one. The rotting plague was the equivalent of that. If you were inflicted with rotting plague and did not receive treatment right away, you could only ask to be killed or turn into a brainless undead. Now, not all undead were brainless. In fact, there were a few species of undead. There was the Scourge, which are the undead who had no intelligence and only knew how to kill and spread rotting plague. Then there was the Risen, who are more like normal monsters with mild intelligence. And lastly, there are the Lich, who are as smart as any other sentient race, and even had their own kingdom to the south called the Great Citadel. From what I have read, normally when dealing with a Scourge, it would require 3 or more people to exterminate it, because no one wanted to turn into a Scourge if they were wounded by one. So there had to be people there to kill anyone who was inflicted. This was mainly because when dealing with a Scourge, they were usually nowhere near a place that could expel the rotting plague. I was not sure if everything I read was correct or not, but from what I understood, to expel the rotting plague, you would need a rare form of magic, and only those with a particular affinity to what is called holy magic would be able to cast this magic. Whether I could cast it or not, I do not know, since none of the magic books I read had holy magic in it. So right now, I could only hope that my mana shield would block such ailments. I could run as well, but it is said once you're locked on by a Scourge, they will chase after you until they're disposed of. I actually never understood one thing about the books when talking about the undead. They always use the word kill when talking about getting rid of them. How do you kill something that is already dead? I shook my head, trying to clear any unnecessary thoughts as I stared at the skeletal tiger. Physical attacks are useless on Scourge unless you destroy the head completely in a single blow. Only fire magic is able to really do damage to them. I was kind of torn on my plan on how to deal with this. I could try to use my sword and really learn what my mana shield is able to block, or I could use fire magic again, which would probably be able to kill it quickly, but might start another fire, drawing attention to this area. I guess I will try melee attack for now and use ice magic to slow it down and restrict its movement. I did not want to bring any unwanted attention, so melee attacks were my best option at this time. My eyes glowed with a dark red magic circle. Colossal strength, I called out, causing a red aura to envelop my body. As the name suggests, it was a spell that increased my strength. The increase was 3 times that of my normal strength. I was hoping by increasing my strength enough that I could get a single strike in to destroy the skeletal trigger's skull, ending the fight quickly. As if sensing that I was about to attack, the skeletal tiger let out a roar before pouncing at me. I quickly dodged to the side and went to strike out, trying to hit the skeletal tiger on the head, but I seemed to have greatly underestimated the strength of an undead. Clang! My sword rang out as if it had hit an immovable metal wall. The vibration from the collision ran up my arm, almost making me drop my sword. And before I could even react, I felt something heavy hit my mana shield, sending me flying back, smashing into a tree. Arg! Pain! I felt pain in my body. The impact jogged my bones, causing me to feel immense pain. This was the first time I felt such pain. It was as if the nerves in my spine had been pinched upon impact. It actually stunned me, making it hard for me to move. Gradually, the pain in my body began to fade, but by the time it did, I only got to raise my sword to block the incoming skeletal claw, slamming down on me. Ah! My body was slammed through the tree and sent flying into another tree. I truly felt like a punching bag at this point. I looked at both my health and mana, and saw that my mana was still perfect, but my health had actually dropped by 10 points. It was then I realized a huge flaw in the mana shield. Indirect damage was not fully blocked. I'm not sure if this was because mana shield was never tested properly due to the consumption of mana when taking damage, or if it was because people thought it was too useless to even use. But I was finding out firsthand that mana shield was not omnipotent. The mana shield blocked the attacks from the skeletal tiger without issue, but the trees I was slamming into were causing me some damage. I'm sure I would have lost much more than 10 points of health if the mana shield was not protecting me, at least a little bit. In a way, I was glad I was finding this out now. I mean, what would have happened if I ran into someone who used an area attack on me? Since it was not direct, wouldn't I instantly die? This thought sent a shiver down my spine as I tried to steady myself. Faith, focus. I cannot let my mind wander at this time. One wrong mistake, and I might just die. Gritting my teeth and gripping my sword, I finally found time to try to get an ice restriction spell off. Ice lock. I watched as the skeletal tiger who was rushing at me came to an abrupt stop as its feet became covered in ice, freezing them in place. Only when I saw this did I let out a sigh of relief. Minor Heal. Minor Heal was an intermediate spell and would heal small wounds. I actually never used it before since I never really saw a need to use it. But right now, I could not risk letting my health drop much. There was no telling what will happen during this fight. I only know right now that I'm really getting my butt kicked. The skeletal tiger was now stuck in place. It was currently staring me down, probably trying to figure out why I was not crushed to mush or not turning into one of its kind, or more importantly, why it could not move. I could smell a hint of rotting stench coming from its claws as it struck me just now. It was not something I really wished to smell again. Luckily, I have a strong stomach otherwise. I would have lost my breakfast. I had no idea how long the skeletal tiger would be restrained for, so I have to act quickly in deciding my next course of action, and honestly, I think that my only option is to use fire and hope all goes well. I will just need to make sure I have water ball ready to quickly put out anything that catches on fire and reduce the smoke plumes. I took a deep breath and decided on this plan of action. I stretched out my hand and recited the activation word. Fireball. The whirling ball fire shot forward and slammed into the skeletal tiger's head, causing a loud explosion. Boom! I watched as the flames shot up towards the tree branches and brush near the impact point, and quickly began casting water balls left and right to put the flames out, all the while keeping my eye on where the skeletal tiger was. As the dust and smoke cleared, I started to become nervous because there had been no notification popping up saying I killed it. I stared at the bones that had collapsed on the ground inside the small crater, very closely waiting to see what would happen. I began to feel something was really wrong. I could see that I destroyed the head. I mean, there was nothing left except a few fragments and half the skeletal body. But as the seconds ticked by, I saw it. The bones began to shake and rise up off the ground. Piece by piece, the bones began to form together, and even the parts that were small shards began to regenerate. I stood there in shock because I had never read or heard anything about a scourge being able to regenerate like this. As I focused on the skeletal tiger, its information popped up in front of me, causing my face to pale. Wrathful Scourge Tiger. Type: Attack: 360 to 380. Level: 25. Seeing the level and amount of damage it could do made me feel very afraid. I realized now I had been way too relaxed when going into this and did not take into account for strange things like this to happen. Just because I have never read of any accounts of it in the books at home does not mean that such things were not possible. But something like this where the monster was originally a level 5 turning into a level 25. I couldn't wrap my head around it, no matter how much I tried to think about it. There was one thing I didn't know at this time, and that was I had to be careful. If this new kind of monster were to hit me at its current level, I am sure I will be sent flying to someplace that I would never come back from. Whether I lived or died would be another question, but I also knew that I could not run towards the village. This meant I only had one option. I had to run deeper into the forest, because if I did run to the village, I would be bringing about everyone's doom. While I had a feeling most of the people in the village disliked me, only Trent and his goons have ever said anything mean to me. So I did not wish to see anyone come to harm who never actually harmed me. And if it had come to harm due to this monster, it would be my fault. Fireball. Wind Rush. With no other choice, I launched a fireball right at the wrathful scourge before running off deeper into the woods. Sadly, I could not leave any marks to find my way back. I could only hope to rely on visual direction by climbing trees if I am able to escape this predicament. Roar. The wrathful scourge seemed angered by the attack just now and began chasing after me. Luckily, it did not seem to have any long-range attacks, so I could make use of my small figure compared to the wrathful scourge's large body to make it in between batches of trees and bushes with ease. I weaved in and out of the trees, testing the intelligence of this monster to find that it was actually quite dumb. It would get caught up on two trees that were next to each other that I would slip through, even though it could easily just run around them and catch up to me. Not that I was complaining, because this was good news for me. My brain spun as I began trying to formulate a new plan using the lack of intelligence the wrathful scourge has. I'm not sure it's possible, but in theory, it should be possible to form multiple magic circles at the same time. If I use 2 ice walls and then bombard it with fireball after fireball, I should be able to kill it. At least I hope. To be perfectly honest, I have no idea if this would even work. But I need to restrict the wrathful scourge's movements as much as possible. And casting Ice Lock on a monster that is way above my level was not something I was going to risk stopping and trying to cast. In the books I read, it says Ice Lock can be easily undone if the monster is stronger. They can easily shatter the ice with brute force. I know there is a saying that you do not know until you try. While that was very true, in this situation, it was not something worth risking. I would not risk my little life to test a spell. Ice Wall was more practical in this situation, as I could easily manipulate its thickness, making it as sturdy as a boulder. By using 2 of them to herd the wrathful scourge into a narrow passage that it might not be able to get through, it would at least give me more time to prepare my attacks to try to take it down in a barrage of spells. Now I know I could use an intermediate attack spell in this situation, but the problem with that is that the power of my spell seemed to be much higher than that of a normal spell. My only thought on why this was because from the novels I read, intelligence sometimes also acts as a boost to magic power. While I do not know if this is actually true or not, in my case, I do know that my fireballs are more powerful than my mother's by a lot. I continued to run while I drew magic circles in my eyes, trying to create multiples at one time. The process had to be quick in order to cast spells almost instantly, or it would be useless. Every second counted, because every second was one step closer to a chance of me dying. One would think that it would be tough trying to do so many things at once, but for some reason, I was able to have multiple thought processes as I ran through the forest and was creating magic circles. It actually surprised me that my mind seemed to be able to handle such things a little too well. This may be another perk of having infinity mind. I ran for almost 15 minutes, and during this time, I have created the same 2 magic circles over and over until I finally got them down to creating 2 ice wall magic circles and 15 fireball magic circles at the same time. I think this is good enough. I mumbled as I looked for the perfect set of trees. My idea right now was to find a set of trees for the wrathful scourge to get caught up on. Then I would cast my double ice wall on both sides of it. When it broke through the trees, I would already have my fireball spells flying at it. I just had to do everything correctly and make sure my timing was perfect. I was actually sweating. My palms were soaking wet, and I could feel my fingers starting to prune because of it. This whole situation was a lot to take, and the pressure of what I was about to do was really weighing me down. I took a deep breath as I spotted the set of trees that fit my plan and charged forward. I slipped through the gap between the trees and quickly turned around, for magic circles appearing in my eyes, 2 in each. I reached out both my hands as I skidded to a stop and yelled out, "Ice wall!" 2 1,000-foot long walls that rose up to 10 feet into the air and were almost 6 feet wide, formed in front of me in a V shape, only leaving a small gap for me to see through. I took a deep breath and shakingly let it out as my eyes glowed once more. The wrathful scourge had already destroyed the trees in front of it and was now charging right toward me. The closer it got, the tighter the space became for it, until it finally seemed to have lodged itself in between the 2 walls of ice. My eyes were filled with 15 magic circles, each 30 in total. I closed my eyes and opened them once more before extending my hands out once again. Fireball! 15 fireballs formed in front of me and shot through the space between the walls of ice, barreling down the channel I made right at the wrathful scourge. The wrathful scourge must have felt the danger of the fireballs because it began to struggle to get out of the way, but with how far it was wedged in and how thick the walls of ice were, there was no way it could force its way out. Each of the 15 fireballs landed directly onto the wrathful scourge, and as the first explosions were going off, another 15 followed up behind them. Boom! When I saw the massive explosion, I knew right away that I had gone way overboard. I braced myself for the incoming shockwave that spread out from the impact point. I watched as the walls of ice shattered and vaporized under the extreme heat of the fireballs and the force of the explosion. As the wave of energy spread out, I lowered my body to try to ward off some of the impact, but was still sent stumbling a few feet back. Wrathful Scourge Tiger killed. Experience plus 20,000. Level up, 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 level 29. Status points 540. Skill points 07. Ha 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 ha. I did it. Seeing the notification and the experience I had just gained, I couldn't help but shout out for joy as I sprawled my body out on the ground. I was very tired. With all the running around and planning, as well as attempting to cast so many spells at once, I just really wanted to take a nap. But after a few minutes of rest, I still got up to examine the damage. A crater at least over 50 feet deep and 100 feet wide had formed. My ice walls seemed to have acted as a natural barrier, so no flames spread to other parts of the forest. Knowing the wrathful scourge was dead, I walked right over to the crater and looked down inside. What's that? Deep in the middle of the crater was a shiny object that caught my attention. I do not know if it is because of my dragon heritage or not, but shiny objects always quickly catch my eye. Not wasting any time, I slid down into the crater that was still smoking from my attack and walked over to the object that glimmered in the center. When I got close enough, I saw a purplish-bluish stone with a gentle glow about it lying there in the dirt. I reached down and picked it up and focused my eyes. Item acquired, Evolution Stone. Evolution Stone, a consumable item that will help any being evolve. Evolution Stone. I turned the stone in my hand over as I looked at it curiously. I had yet to read anything about evolution stones, so this was something I would need to look into. But one thing I did not understand was how to use it. Do I eat it? Acquire an item. Inventory system unlocked. Evolution stone detected. Evolution system unlocked. Dash. Inventory system. Evolution system. I was done being surprised by all the notifications popping up, but it seemed my system liked to add things as I get them. I should make myself scarce first before someone comes to investigate. I could only sigh. I kept having to run away from the scene of my crimes. I figured it would probably be best to head back towards the cliffside before it got too late. I had plenty of time to explore the forest to look for places to level up at, and find places to experiment with my magic. To be honest, I have really been living on that fine line of exposing myself ever since I entered the forest. I was fine when I was just fighting horned rabbits, but now I have created a huge mess in 2 places. This was not good. If the village expands its patrols within the forest, I might end up losing my training ground, and that would ruin all my future plans. But before anything, I really needed to wash up. I had blood from horned rabbits caked on my skin and mixing in with my sweat. I needed to find a spot to wash up that was not so exposed. Out of what is called everyday magic, there were a few that were perfect for these situations. One was called hot rain magic, which allowed you to create a ball of hot water that will rain down onto you like a shower back on Earth. Ever since I learned of it, I have always used it when I can. Then there was the warm breeze magic that was nothing more than warm wind that you could blow on your body or clothes to dry them. And lastly, there was whirlpool. The best thing about this kind of magic is you could make it an actual attack, or just a simple washing machine. You could create a small one in front of you and toss your clothes into it with some soap to clean them. Because of these spells, day-to-day life was rather simple when it came to hygiene and clothes washing. I ran for about 15 minutes before looking around to find a spot without any monsters. I ended up finding a spot by a huge tree that had some low-lying branches. I created an earth version of ice wall called Earth Wall to make an enclosure. Only when I was surrounded did I finally strip my dirty clothes off and toss them into a whirlpool before taking a shower. About an hour later, I was fully dressed and feeling refreshed once again. I have always had a habit of staying in the shower for way longer than needed. There was something about the hot water beating down on my skin that always relaxed me. I should figure out where I am. Undoing the earth wall around me, I climbed the tree next to me and made my way to the top to look out over the area. It was my first time getting a good view of the area, so when I saw the expansive sea of forest that led to the other side of the long plateau that my village was perched on, I was quite surprised at just how big the area was. I turned to see the edge of the forest, not far from my position. While I had run at least a mile into the first, it was not far enough from the forest edge to make me completely lost. Okay, that way is out. I will just need to get to the forest edge, then circle back around. I sat on a tall tree branch looking out over the forest, taking in the view for a moment before deciding to just go ahead and check out the new additions to my system. I quickly opened the menu to see 2 new additions. First, I opened my inventory and looked at it. It looked no different than any video game inventory that was based on a slot system. It was just I had no idea how to put anything into it. Scratching my head, I plucked a leaf off the tree, and following what I normally had to do, I concentrated on it, but this time I thought of sticking it into the inventory. Add leaf to inventory. A message popped up in front of me, asking if I wanted to add the leaf to the inventory or not. Yes, after I spoke what seemed to be the magic words, the leaf disappeared from my hand and now took up a slot in the inventory. When I focused on the leaf, a secondary window popped up, giving me details about the item. Although the information was no different from what I would see if I appraised it. Only there was a button underneath the information that said retrieve. If I concentrated on it, it would light up as if I was hovering over it. So, it's basically a mental type control system when dealing with things. Same as with the skill system. But at least this is helpful. I can now carry many items with me without needing to actually carry them. I used the retrieve button on the leaf, and it once again appeared in my hand. Or more like I subconsciously reached out to grab it as it appeared. A kind of strange feeling as if I had no control over what I was doing. But I was sure I would get used to it over time. I would rather be controlled for a few seconds to grab the item that was appearing than letting, let's say, my evolution stone drop to the ground and break and become waste. Speaking of the evolution stone, I set aside the inventory to test it more later and went to check out the new evolution system. This is kind of amazing. My eyes widened when I looked at the evolution system. Only the top 2 are lit up and show a slot above the name. The evolution stone must go into that slot. I tilted my head to the side as I looked the menu over before checking out the 2 options I had for evolution. Let's see. First one is a dragling, a young dragon race that cannot transform into humans until they are older but are 10 times stronger than other young dragons. I pursed my lips. There was no way I would want to evolve into a dragon race that I can't actually stay human in. My eyes quickly fell onto the next option that was lit up. Dragnoid, an evolved form of dragonkin. A humanoid dragon race that can transform into dragons. Size and scale is dependent on current age. A dragnoid's dragon form is 5 times stronger than its human form. Partial transformation is possible with practice. We'll acquire skill dragon breath for both humanoid and dragon forms. Takes 1 hour to complete evolution. Now, this is more like it. But the question is, will I still look the same after evolution? Will I still be the cute me that I am now? While I know I may sound narcissistic, my current looks have to stay the same, at least enough so that my family can recognize me. I did not wish to turn into some kind of freak of nature or end up looking like someone completely different. But the idea of becoming an actual dragon was kind of enticing. I mean, it's a dragon, right? I might have dragon aspects already, but aren't baby dragons supposed to be cute? I was really debating on what I should do, but I was worried about what would happen to me physically. I tapped my chin and pondered, but still couldn't come to a firm decision. I decided to wait for the time being. I stuck my evolution stone into my inventory and climbed down the tree. I left the forest as quickly as possible and walked along the cliff edge, making my way back towards the road that leads to my house. It was there that I saw my brother walking over to me. I smiled brightly and waved my hand at him. "Brother, you idiot, where did you go?" My brother yelled, causing me to flinch slightly. I lower my head and dare not to look up. I wanted to say something, but before I could, I was pulled into his embrace. Faith, you have no idea how hard Mother, Father, and I have been searching for you. There have been explosions going off in the forest, indicating a powerful monster battle. We thought maybe you were caught up in them. I kind of felt bad because I know for a fact that those explosions were my doing. So in truth, I was caught up in them. But I could not tell him such things, or I would definitely be locked away. I was on the other side of the village exploring the rocky area. I lied. I hated it, but I had no choice. I'm sorry, brother. The rocky area? My brother sighed as he released me. That place can be a maze sometimes. There are also elementals that sometimes appear there, so you need to be careful in that area. Come on, let's go find Mother and Father. They're very worried right now. As I lay in bed, I began planning out what I would do for training the next day. I had so much I needed to do, and I was starting to feel like I was rushing things a bit too much. But when I thought about what might happen in the future, I couldn't help but begin squeezing in everything I could. I decided to section my day off between leveling and practicing magic. So far, with my mana trickle, my stats were indeed increasing like before. So I could only wait until they were finally capped to use any status points. To be honest, I actually saw no need to use these points as of now, since I could get free points just from leveling and letting my mana trickle. As for the skill points, I did not know what to use them for at this time. I figured, like my status points, I would use them when I needed them. This way, when I finally go off on my own, no matter where I am, I will always have the ability to pick up any trade no matter what I end up doing to make money. I wanted to leave any and all options open for the future. As for evolution, I was still thinking about that. I have been looking at the evolution trees, and they seem to be very enticing on many levels. Mainly the special traits. The Dragnoid evolution line was quite good, from partial and full transformations to fire breath in both forms, to even evolving later on into Grand Dragnoid that was able to use more than just fire breath. From there, the evolution lines branched out to many different dragon lines, but they were all blurred out. I could only see the next line, which was Grand Dragnoid. But what I noticed was that to evolve into a Grand Dragnoid, I would need 10 evolution stones. I felt a chill just thinking about needing to fight monsters as strong as the Wrathful Scourge. I could only hope I did not run into such beings again anytime soon. As I was falling asleep, I decided to first look for a hidden place to train tomorrow before I began my new routine. The next day, after a stern warning from my mother, I ventured back out into the forest. My goal today was to find a place to practice magic away from prying eyes. I do have to say that I was much more relaxed going out today than I was yesterday. I guess it was because my father knew I was in the forest, and I was not completely hiding everything from my parents, but there was just so much more they did not know and would probably never know. Right now, I could only hope things kept the status quo. I went about 2 miles into the forest, staying near the rocky area, as my father told me to avoid any villagers. This side of the forest even seemed much more peaceful than the area I went last time. I only ran into a few horned rabbits, but they all ran away from me, unlike before when they would attack me. I'm not sure if this was because of my level or what, but it was nice not to have to stop to kill the cute little things. My stats are steadily going up as well. Name, Faith Cerelia. Age 7. Level 9. Race Dragonkin Dash. HP 550 of 550. MP Infinity. Status points 40. Strength 55. Vitality 55. Intelligence 55. Mind Infinity. Agility 55. Skill points 7. Skills. Appraisal. LVL 1. Being able to have such a massive increase in strength all around was really insane. The 40 status points I had sitting there were nothing compared to my passive, but I was thinking of just dumping it all into vitality so I would have higher health. But I decided I would wait until it all capped out. For the time being, I would let my passive fill out my stats before trying to level anymore. Of course, if I was forced to fight a powerful monster and had no chance of escaping, I would still kill it even if it meant leveling up. My life comes first before experimenting. After a few hours of looking around, I finally found the perfect spot to train. There was a small horseshoe-shaped rocky protrusion that came out of the ground and towered 100 feet or so into the air. The area inside was sparse with trees, but had a wall of trees covering the entrance, making for a perfect barrier from prying eyes. I stood in the center of it and looked around. You would think such a place would be a perfect home for powerful monsters, but I could only see horned rabbits and a few other monsters, but none of them seemed to be bothered by me. The area had more rocks than trees, which made for a perfect testing ground. The rocks were big and made good targets. I found a good spot to sit and began deciding on what I was going to be doing for the day. With my current ability to split a magic circle in two and also create multiple magic circles at once, it should be possible to fuse two elements, right? I pondered for a bit before finding a small rock and began drawing magic circles in front of me. I wanted to first draw them out to see if the runic equations could be mixed or not. I do not think it is possible to fuse fire and water, as they are two opposing elements, so I will leave that element out, but fire and lightning. The runic equation is almost the same between the two. If I were to tweak it here and here, my problem with fusing elements was getting the proper sequence, which should be created first and which should be the more dominant one. From all the books I have read, the theory of magic fusion was only touched upon, and none of it was ever used in day-to-day practice. This was because the process would consume a lot of mana, and if there were people out there that could fuse magic, they were the ones at the top of the food chain. Just by reading the runic equation, the fusion process alone would consume quadruple the amount of mana for creating the magic circle, and this was not including the mana sucked out of you to cast it. The more I learned about magic circles, the more complicated they got. Leaving out a single portion of an equation to speed up a spell cast would cause drastic changes to the outcome of the spell. I have no idea how many times I have failed now while trying to make things instant. I still have not given up on making a spell instant cast, because I know how much even a fraction of a second counts now while in battle after experiencing real combat. I drew magic circle after magic circle, trying to figure out the correct formula, but even as the day went on, I still couldn't come up with anything that would work correctly. I leaned back and looked up at the sky. The setting sun was starting to turn the sky from the bluish hue of day to the orange hue of evening, so I knew it was time to go home. I used some water magic to wash away my scratches, so I would not leave any evidence behind before making my way home. The gentle breeze that blew by made my hair flutter slightly as I walked along the cliffside. Just thinking about how many years had quickly passed already made me realize how quickly time flew by. 7 years in a new world, and I have quickly grown accustomed to it. Not that I had any choice, but to be honest, I really do love this world. I do miss my life back on Earth as well, but I would never go back even if I was given a chance to. Well, maybe to tell Jen that I was okay. I have no idea how she was doing. Maybe one day, I will be able to create magic that will allow me to travel to or peer into other worlds. I just wish to know how she was holding up. I hope she is doing fine. I do worry for my earthling mother and father as well. They love me dearly. I hope they did not do anything stupid after I died. Now that I was thinking about it, they might even blame Jen for my death as well. I sighed and stopped to look out over the valley below. I bowed my head and clasped my hands together. With my eyes closed, I said a little prayer for both my parents and Jen. I am not one to be overly religious. In fact, I was not religious at all. But that did not stop me from saying something. I just wanted to wish them all good fortune and peaceful lives. Being a little emotional at times was not a bad thing. I just wished to keep those from my past life in my heart, no matter what. I looked out over the beautiful scenery and smiled softly. If they could only see this, I am sure they would all be at peace. Faith! My father's voice came from not far. I turned to see him walking toward me. He had a sickle in his hand that rested on his shoulder. Father? Is something wrong? I was hoping I did not cause another scene somehow, without knowing it. No, I just happened to come here to take in the fresh air and spotted you. How was it? Your training, that is. My father answered as he walked over and ruffled my hair. His hands were big and strong, and actually made me feel kind of tiny. It's going. I have been trying to make my casting faster. I did not go into complete details because I was not sure if he would change his mind about my training in the forest if he knew I was trying to fuse magic. Just don't overdo it and run out of mana. Because if you do and I have to go searching for you, your mother will not let either of us off. For some reason, I had a feeling my father was more worried about his own well-being than mine when it came to my mother. Not that I blame him. My mother would never make me sleep outside when she was mad. But I also did not want to be subjected to the red bottom technique. Otherwise, I might be sleeping on my stomach for a few days. I promise. I won't overdo it. Not that I could. My mana never went down, thankfully. If it did, I do not think I would like magic as much. Now that I think about it, I wonder what would have caught my interest if I only had limited mana. Maybe cooking? Sewing? I have no idea, to be honest. But it probably would have been cooking since I do enjoy it a little bit. I just don't like doing dishes or the prep work. Not that it matters. With my system, I can choose whatever skill I want and become a pro at it. I can go from noob to 5-star chef in just a few seconds. Time dependent on how quickly I can add points to the skill tree. Hop on. I will carry you back. My father knelt down in front of me and motioned for me to climb on his back. I smiled and did just that. My father was tall, so seeing things from a new height every once in a while was not so bad. I hooked my arms around his neck and rested my chin on his shoulder. I wish days like this would continue for a long time. As the days passed, I would go to my secret area and work on magic formulas and nothing else. I was still trying to find a way to fuse fire and lightning together. And today was no different. I sat in the same spot as always, looking at the magic circles etched into the ground while pursing my lips. I felt like I was missing some kind of link between the two. This is getting me nowhere. I scratched my head and sat back, looking up at the sky. Clouds are starting to come in. I should probably call it a day soon. Let's check my stats first. Name, Faith Cerelia. Age, 7. Level 9. Race, Dragonkin. HP, 2700/2700. MP, Infinity. Status points, 40 dash. Strength, 270, max for level. Vitality, 270, max for level. Intelligence, 270, max for level. Mind, Infinity. Agility, 270, max for level. Skill points, 7. Skills. Appraisal, LVL1. Finally capped. I have been waiting for this moment. If this was a game and my character had such high stats at level 9, I'm sure there would be nothing I couldn't kill under level 30 at the minimum. But this was finally my time to figure out if applying status points to capped stats would actually allow them to exceed the cap. I took a deep breath before finally adding a point to Vitality. Status points, 40, 39. Vitality, 270, 271. HP, 2710/2710. It really does allow me to break the cap. My eyes shine with happiness. While my health is high, I'm always worried that I will never have enough. So being able to up my vitality to gain more health was a huge thing for me. Status points, 39-0. Vitality, 271/310. HP, 2710/3100/3100. Not bad. At least now I can continue leveling up. It will all need to wait until tomorrow, though. Or so I thought. The next day, it was heavily raining, keeping me stuck inside with nothing to do. In the end, I ended up doing more research on magic, looking at the books we had, and hoping to find something that might help me with my fusion magic. I couldn't help but sigh as I opened the books I have read many times now. I have memorized each of these books. I could recite each page on demand if someone asked me to do so. So I knew I would never find anything new, but I still combed over them in hopes of finding something. If not, anything that could help in my fusion magic. I sat by the window in my bedroom with the wooden shutter propped up to block the rain, but also so I could look outside as I contemplated what I read. The humid air made everything feel sticky and myself feel sweaty, but there was nothing I could do about that. This world did not have anything called a dehumidifier or an air conditioner. I could only suffer under these conditions. After a while, you do get used to it, but it still made me feel sluggish. Faith, you look like you were about to melt away and turn into a slime. I heard my brother's teasing voice. I couldn't help it, though. I was really not feeling up to anything with how sticky I felt. There were actually slimes in this world. Only they were mostly found in the lowlands down below the cliff. Every once in a while, a slime would appear near the top of the road that leads down into the valley. But normally, The village kids will go out and kill it as a means of practice. I hate to say it, but from the pictures I've seen in books and stories I have heard about slimes, they seem to be very cute. Sadly, another creature that looks cute but is actually very deadly. If a human gets surrounded by many slimes or falls asleep in an area that they are active in without protection, one could quickly find parts or all of their body being slowly digested. Slimes are considered the world's cleaners, as they can eat anything. The word eat is probably the wrong word to use, as they dissolve their prey with their bodily fluids. To be honest, I think I would prefer to be eaten than dissolved slowly. At least by the time I hit the stomach of whatever attacked me, I would either be dead or at least close to it. It may be a strange thing to say, but this was how I felt about it. Slimes were also beings that were immune to physical attacks and needed to be killed with magic of a different element. So a blue slime could be killed by any element but water. The same could be said for any type of slime. Slimes were born from magic and only from elements that were abundant in the area. They were basically harmless to a certain extent. A child could easily kill them if they can cast the correct spell. A slime's main attack was its pounce. After contact, the fluids on the slime's body would rub off onto its target and dissolve the clothing of the person. If the fluids touched skin, it would begin to burn and dissolve the skin. But unlike when it is trying to consume you, the damage is minor and not fatal. At my brother's teasing, I just ignored him, because he said something that reminded me of something I had read before. Slime sometimes had two fused elements. In areas where magic of two elements is abundant, they would be formed of those two elements. My eyes widened at this revelation as I jumped up from my seat. "Brother, you are a genius." I ran by my brother, who seemed to be confused as to why I was praising him as I ran out of the room back to the bookshelf. "Found it." I quickly turned to the page with slimes that explained in great detail about how they are born. By elements intertwining with each other, they can form a mix of elements which gives birth to a dual element slime. If this is true, I couldn't wait. I grabbed my raincoat and tossed on my boots. I was about to run out of the door when a big hand grabbed my shoulder. "Faith, where do you think you are going without saying anything?" I turned to see my father's questioning gaze, which caused my mind to blank out for a second. I was so caught up in my revelation that I had forgotten that I was still only 7. I think I figured out the issue that I have been having with my magic. "Father, if I do not go out and try it now, I might forget everything." I was slightly lying because I could never forget, but still I had to go out now. This was something I had been working on all week. I had to find out if my way of thinking was correct or not. It would be fine if I could just work it with magic circles, but I had to actually cast them to prove my theory. My father looked into my eyes that were full of determination and sighed. "Fine, but I'm going with you. It's raining and the roads are dangerous." "What are you two talking about?" I heard my mother's voice coming from behind my father. I paled because I did not know if she had heard what I was saying. Faith thinks she had just figured something out about casting magic and wanted to go out and try it. I will go with her. We are going towards a rocky area where we'll be safe to see if her idea works or not in case something happens. My father answered truthfully, although it was not about spell casting. I looked at my mother, who was eyeing my father suspiciously before she nodded her head. "Just be back before it gets dark." I breathed a sigh of relief when I heard this, but now I'm a little troubled. I knew I would need to explain fusion magic to my father now, and I hoped he would not keep me from using it. "All right, Faith, get on. I will carry you over." I climbed on my father's back and left the house with him. We had only gotten halfway down the road when he asked, "So tell me, what is it that you are so excited about?" I know it is not casting speed. The dreadful question had finally come. I took a deep breath and collected my thoughts before trying to finally explain myself. The past week, I have been working without any success on magic formulas that would allow me to fuse two elements together, creating a new spell. I have yet to even attempt to try anything outright, only drawing magic circle after magic circle on the ground. But nothing I worked up seemed like it would work, nor did I wish to try unless I was actually sure it would not blow up in my face. But now, after remembering how double element slimes existed, I figured the process of fusing two elements together with magic was not much different than how it happens in nature. Fusion magic, huh? Faith, fusion magic is said to drain a lot of mana. Are you sure you are able to cast something like this? My father seemed more worried over mana deprivation than anything else. If my idea does work, it would be no different than casting a few spells at a time, meaning it will use much less magic than the fusion magic theory read in books. I replied, it was true. If my idea on fusion elements actually worked, it would reduce the mana cost by almost 80%. If it does work, I want you to teach me. Also, do not tell anyone about this. If word of fusion magic spread, it could cause a huge imbalance in the world. And I, for one, do not wish for war. I only want to learn it so I can protect you, your mother, and your brother. And also so I can get a better understanding of what you are working so hard on. Over there, I pointed at a cluster of trees blocking the entrance to my secret practice ground. The rain was still coming down, but the two of us did not mind one bit. In fact, it was probably best if it was raining that way. If anything did happen, the rain could help put out any fires that might occur. This place is not bad at all. I never thought this place existed. I had always thought the protrusion was just a tall rock formation. Never thought it created a little oasis. My father's expression showed how surprised he was. It kind of struck me as odd as to why this place had never been discovered before, but when I think about how the people in the village rarely come to this area due to the lack of wildlife, it did make some sense as to why it was not discovered, or if it had been, it was ignored. The layout of the trees also blocked it from view from inside the forest as well. I just happened to spot the area and lined it up with the rocks from the outside. I poked around a bit and was able to find this place. I said as I climbed off my father's back. I walked over to the more rocky area and pointed at a certain spot. That is where I normally go to do my thinking. You spend all day there drawing magic circles? My father asked. I could tell he was surprised at my dedication. I mean, I'm out here for hours nonstop, drawing these magic circles like some obsessed freak of nature. But I can't help it. Even when all I did at home was read, all the time besides doing my homework, which I hated doing because it cut into my free time, I just read. I read every novel I could find, whether online or printed version. I was so obsessed with losing myself in the worlds the authors created that I didn't care about other things. Love, romance, none of that mattered. My friends were out being bashful while talking with boys, while I was dreaming about the hot male lead from the novel I was currently reading. I know these are two different extremes, but this was just how I was when I put my everything into something. At least magic is beneficial to my new life, while reading back on Earth was just a hobby. I mean, yeah, I could have become an author, but that was only if I could put my thoughts into words and actually produce something that was decent enough that would make people want to read it. I will admit I did try to write a few times, but it took too much time, and then I would have less time to read. Yep, I have been here trying to come up with a solution to my problem all week. I replied. I couldn't sit down now with how wet things were due to the rain, but it didn't matter, Dash. So what is the process you're talking about that you have come up with? I am now your student, so help me understand, so I can attempt to do this with you. My father was raring to go, which made me smile. It was very rare for the two of us to get time to bond like this, so I was actually quite thankful for the rain. It kept my father from needing to go out into the fields. The process is like this. If a slime is made of condensed magic, we just need to create magic and condense it into a natural process using magic itself. Only then can we turn the end product into a spell. After completing the magic circles, we will then need to speed up the casting time and get the spells to cast and merge at the time, giving birth to a new kind of magic. I explained. I had no idea how easy it was to understand, but that was the basic idea of it. Wait, you are casting two magic circles simultaneously. I watched as my father's eyes widened in shock. It would be like this. I reached out in front of me with both hands, and using a single finger on each hand, I began writing to different magic circles at the same time. My speed was quick and seemed very natural. I'm sure my father could tell I have practiced this a lot. I was just unsure if my father would be able to do it as well. After all, I could process multiple things at a time without issue. I see. I heard a sigh coming from my side, causing me to look up at my father. He scratched his head and began attempting the same thing. It was no easy task, that is for sure. He started off slow and messed up quite a few times. But eventually, he started to get the hang of it. My father was truly amazing. He was learning really fast. I watched him practice for an hour. It was not like I could give him tips, as I was just naturally able to do it. An hour passed, and he had finally gotten the hang of it. This is difficult, and any loss of concentration can mess up the magic circle, but once I get the hang of it, I should be able to cast just as fast as you. Faith, what is the next step? Now we change how the magic circle is written, while still keeping the fundamental basis of it. Let's start with the fire circle. We're not trying to create a fireball, but actually gather and condense the fire elements in the air. So in order to do that, we will need to change what we are doing and what the outcome is. And then down here in this formula, we need to change how it is gathered. If we take the runic equation that is used to condense the ice in Ice Wall and rewrite it like this, we should be in theory able to condense a mass of fire elements into a ball. I finished my magic circle in 3 seconds before saying the activation word. Condense. The area in front of me began to grow warm as fire elements began to gather in the air. The mass of orange that had no true use but resembled molten metal floated in the air. So this is what it looked like when it condenses. I looked at my creation with great interest. It was my first time ever rewriting a spell completely to do something else, so this was all intriguing to me. Now, in theory, if I did the same for the lightning element, I began drawing another magic circle in the air that soon created a ball of condensed lightning that floated next to the ball of condensed fire. I inspected the two of them before feeding my magic into the two and began moving them closer together. This was where the greatest amount of mana consumption would happen. I could not allow the two condensed elements to just merge in one go. I had to be careful and do it slowly, little by little, as the elements began to intermingle. Sweat dripped from my brow, and I bit my lower lip and steadily merged the two elements into the other, allowing the condensed balls to become one. 15 minutes passed before I finally made them merge together. I did it. Floating in front of me was a yellow and red ball of elements coexisting with one another, as if it was very natural. This is quite amazing, but the time it takes to do the merger is way too long. Also, how do you plan to make this into a spell? My father's question was a good one. The process was kind of sloppy, but to really do anything, there would need to be a final magic circle that took in the merged elements to create a spell. The entire process is only preliminary. I hope to combine the entire method into a single magic circle at some point. But for now, to actually cast, it will be something like this. I drew out the magic circle I had in mind and gave an activation word. Static fire. The condensed magic floating in the air suddenly burst into an electrified fireball and swirled in front of me. To my surprise, it was much more stable than I had imagined. With a wave of my hand, I sent my new creation toward the rocks. Go! It flew out at an incredible speed before slamming into a large boulder. Boom! A large explosion went off as both fire and lightning danced together. Arcs of lightning spread out, destroying more of the area, while fire melted the rock at the epicenter. I had officially created a spell that was both a single target and an area of effect at the same time. As the dust and debris settled, I saw a wide, deep crater in front of me, still glowing hot even under the rain. It was much more powerful than I expected. Faith you. I turned to see my father's mouth was open so wide you could literally stick an egg inside of it. I had actually forgotten he was here. I had once again tuned the world out around me while working on something. I was having a hard time explaining. This kind of magic should not be something a 7-year-old should be able to cast, never mind creating. Faith, never show this to anyone else. But perfect it. This magic could be something that can save your life one day. Sadly, I can only say it is beyond me. My father seemed a little disappointed, but I was feeling relieved at least I wasn't yelled at or questioned in detail about why I am able to do all of this. I promised not to show anyone else. I nodded my head. I know it would be dangerous to do so. This kind of magic, if formulated on a grander scale, let's say using a magic spell like Grandfall, which already is very destructive, and then is fused with another kind of equally destructive magic, it could cause catastrophic consequences. Also, you can only practice with me around. I will make time every night for a few hours in the evening to stay with you while you train. I will also make up an excuse to tell your mother why we will be coming home late as well. My father seemed to be nervous and excited at the same time. I'm not sure if my father really likes magic or what, but his eyes shone kind of like mine when I casted the spell just now. Maybe my father and I do have a lot more in common than I had thought. And lastly, we will also train you more in swordsmanship. I will get you a teacher to train you more in the early mornings. Never put all your eggs in a single basket. Magic is good, but it will not get you out of every situation. I nodded my head, agreeing with his statement. It was true that it was better to be safe than sorry. Then I will make sure I learn well. While my first try with fusion magic was successful, it was far from being combat ready. I mean, no enemy would ever wait 15 plus minutes for me to cast a spell, that was for sure. But now that I had an understanding of the process, I could begin working on a new fusion magic spell, which would work in a universal manner. I wanted to be able to combine any two spells using the same runic equation and only needing to change the elements. As the days passed, my new schedule was filled to the brim. In the early mornings, my father's friend, a guard from the town guard, would come over to help train me in swordsmanship. He was actually quite nice and did not treat me any different than he would others. During the day, I would be off trying to level up and practicing what I learned in swords and magic. At night, I would spend a few hours working on my fusion magic with my father. And before bed, I spent much-needed mother-daughter time with my mother. Eventually, it had become time for the day that most villagers of Wandermere waited for. The day the merchant caravan would roll into town. It was a day that everyone who worked hard every day took time off to come to trade and sell their wares to the merchants to buy what they needed in return. In a way, merchants were actually making a killing because they never really lost any money. Instead, they gained money by selling salt, sugar, and other things at a much higher price than what they bought them for. This was because you could not get such items in the village unless you took the time to run to the nearest city and back, which was at least 2 weeks or more travel time. But besides being a kind of lifeline for certain items, this was going to be my first time actually adventuring into town. I had no idea how people would react toward me, but I did know that I would be with my mother, father, and brother. Faith, are you ready? My mother asked with a smile. She had made me a white one-piece dress with flowers on it, especially for today. She even put my hair up into pigtails. When I inspected myself in the mirror, I felt I looked pretty cute. Yes, I'm ready, I said with a smile before running to my mother's side and holding her hand. In truth, I was excited and nervous at the same time. I knew the people of the village did not like demi-humans. I did not care too much if they said bad things about me, but if they started cursing my family, I might now be able to control my anger. My family has shown me so much love and care that there is no way I would be able to stand people talking badly about them. I'd rather the words be directed at me and only me. But I think it will be okay. I mean, most people seemed against angering my father. He was big, tall, and strong. To me, he was like a hero who came to the countryside to spend the rest of his days. However, I knew this was not true because my mother tells me stories about their past all the time. I love to listen to such stories as they were mostly about how awkward my father was when he first started trying to court her. He would do silly things like one time he had picked both a batch of flowers and a batch of mushrooms. The mushrooms were for his mother and the flowers for my mother. But being as nervous as he was, he had closed his eyes and held out the batch of mushrooms to my mother, causing her to laugh at him. When he opened his eyes and looked at what he had done, his whole face turned bright red. I really could see my father doing something silly like that. He was a man who loved his family very much. I have no idea if one day I will ever fall in love, but if I do, I hope they will love me as much as my father loves my mother. For now, though, I do not think I will ever come to find anyone who will love me for me. I mean, I'm kind of a weirdo. Plus, I have a long, long life ahead of me, and I really do not see the need for such matters at this time. Those kinds of things will happen when they happen. I mean, let's say I live forever due to what looks to be infinity mana. Then wouldn't it be saddening to always see those you love die? I'm not sure I could take such things. I would prefer to stay single forever. That way, I would only have to deal with saying goodbye to my family once, and that is it. Of course, it is not like I can control what happens in the future. So like I said before, those kinds of things will happen when they happen. When I got outside, my father picked me up and put me on his shoulders. It was much higher than when he carried me on his back. I could see much more, even though it was only a few inches higher. I know I should be acting more my age, as I am well over 20 if you count my previous life, but being a kid again was truly fun. Times like these can only be enjoyed at this age, and I wish to cherish every minute of it. We walked down the dirt road towards the village center. For the first time, I really got to get a good look at how the village was laid out. Normally, I am too preoccupied to even care to look towards the main part of the village, but it seems to be done in a circle shape with a single main road leading to the village center. There was no grand fountain or large well in the center, just a small flower garden that had a statue of a young woman kneeling down, looking as if she was tending to the flowers themselves. When I asked my mother and father about it, I was told that the statue was a tribute to the village founder's daughter, who died during a monster tide. The village has been around for hundreds of years, so I was surprised to see how well the statue had been taken care of all these years. But it seems the current village elder is a descendant of the village founder. As we walked down the road of the village, Auntie Finna spotted us and waved her hand back and forth with a bright smile on her face. "Lilith, Sander, are you coming down as well?" "Oh, Eric is pulling the wagon, I see. He has grown to be so handsome and strong. I bet all the village girls will be trying to marry you soon." "Auntie Finna, you just said that the other day," Eric said while blushing. It seemed Auntie Finna loved to tease my brother. It all started when he was trying to impress one of the village girls down by the wheat fields. Auntie Finna saw him lift large bales of wheat and eyeing the girl who was watching from afar. She found it cute and couldn't resist yelling out at him, praising him for his strength. His whole head turned bright red, and the girl giggled. I kind of wished I was there to see it. I would have teased him right along with her. But I do have to say that my brother is quite handsome. I hope whoever he ends up with will love him like how my mother loves my father. But with how kind he is, I'm afraid he might be bullied by the girls. I guess it will be up to me to make sure any girl he begins to court is up to my standards of who my big brother can marry. I think my current state of mind actually might make me a bro-con. Oh well, I just wanted to live a good life. "Faith, you are coming too? This is your first time, right?" Auntie Finna asked. She was always one of those people who were able to brighten up anyone's day. She was kind to everyone and always tried to help others. I just hope it goes well." I hated sounding like a downer, but everyone knew what I meant. This was my first time actually appearing in front of most of the town. I'm sure they have heard all about me by now. Humph. Let them talk if they want. It's just because they're jealous of how cute you are," Auntie Finna said while shaking her fist. In truth, I really found her to be cute. MMM. It is as Finna says, let them talk. But if they talk too much, my fist might start itching. My father's words were half joking, half serious. No, his words were all serious. There is no doubt in my mind that the first person to say anything will end up being hit. "Sander, don't go around hitting everyone. We can do things in a much simpler manner. I will just burn them all." My mother's scary side is coming out. She was highly skilled with fire magic, so I'm sure she can set quite a few people ablaze if she truly felt like it. But I felt warm knowing I had so many willing to protect me from the wind and rain. I could not ask for any more than this. I just hoped our family outing would not get ruined. As we made our way to the center of town, I could already hear the hustle and bustle of the other villagers as they went from merchant cart to merchant cart, looking to trade their goods and buy some of the things they needed. When we finally arrived, I got to see what is called a Mughal. It is a kind of monster that resembled a cross between a buffalo and a rhino back on Earth, just extremely hairy. They were also huge, at least a few feet taller than a horse. They were very strong and could pull quite a bit of weight. How much? I'm not sure since I've not read much about them. They are monsters, but not, kind of like owning a horse on Earth. They are monsters that were raised from birth, which, due to this, keeps them out of the book I had read on monsters, and, unlike horses, these Mughals eat meat instead of grass. The wagons of merchants were very unique. They were made of wood and almost looked like a small house on wheels, with curved roofs and lanterns dangling from the side. There was one big window with a wide counter where items were lined up and a person on the inside dealing with all the villagers that walked up. It was the first time in my life seeing a true merchant caravan. My eyes wandered here and there as I looked around, but soon my excitement began to wane as my eyes passed by the people of the village. Some did not seem to mind my gaze, but some would make nasty or disgusted faces at me, or lower their heads, averting their eyes. You could say this was my first real taste of discrimination from adults. They did not say any words, but the looks they gave me penetrated me in the same way. I really did not understand why I deserved to be looked at in such a way. It was not like I tried to harm any of them. I have never even seen more than half these people, never mind getting any chance to offend them. You would think I killed their sister or something with the way they looked at me. I guess I will have to get used to this. I mumbled without much thought. I guess my father heard me because he squeezed my leg a bit tighter but did not say anything. But that small squeeze was his way of reassuring me that he was here for me. Dash. I tried to push the bad thoughts to the back of my mind as I continued to look around. But no matter what, those gazes were hard to ignore. I was really feeling my good time turn sour. Sander, how about I take Faith back? My mother seemed overly worried that someone was going to say something to hurt my feelings, or maybe she could feel my mood was quickly changing. Umph. Let these bastards say something. I will shove my fist down their throats. My father did not seem to be in a happy mood as he stared at all the villagers. They quickly looked away when my father's gaze fell on them. Father, Mother, maybe I should go back, I said softly. I did not want anything to happen because of me. While I was ashamed that I would not get to see what items the merchants had, I would prefer not to have any kind of problem start because I was around. All right, if Faith wants to head back, then fine. I will sell our items and get you something good. It seemed my father was a bit reluctant to give in to the villagers, but he probably thought I was really offended by them. I knew it was something I had to get used to, so I was doing my best to ignore them. My father lifted me off his shoulders and set me down. My mother took my hand and squeezed it tightly before patting my head. Let's go back. I forced a smile and squeezed my mother's hand back. We went to walk back through the crowd, but we only moved a few steps when I was suddenly shoved hard from the side, causing me to lose my grip on my mother's hand and fall a few feet away from her. Faith, my mother cried up as I landed on my butt. Let go of me. Get out of my way. The new dress that my mother just made me tore due to my feet getting caught up in it. I looked up to see some older ladies grabbing my mother and holding her back. They had grabbed her hands, making it so she could not cast any spells. She was screaming at the ladies and struggling to get away. Even during her struggling, her eyes were always locked on me. Faith, run away. What are you doing? Unhand me. Is this how the village guard is supposed to act? If something happens to my daughter, I will make you all pay. I heard my father's voice yell out. I turned to see him fighting with quite a few village guards. None of them were people I knew. Andy Finna was also being restrained, and my brother was being held on the ground. They had smashed his face into the ground. I knew this because I could see that his nose was bleeding. Huh, so there's a monster like you, right? I wonder if your mother had an affair with a monster out in the woods. That is why you turned into this. You can only blame them for what is about to happen. I turned to look up at Trent's smug face as he walked through the crowd. Behind him were two guards. He sneered at me and turned to the others. Hold them back. They can watch as I exterminate this monster and save the village. Tears began to well up in my eyes. Why? Why was this happening? I have never done anything wrong to these people. I looked around, looking for anyone who could help my family, but they all just turned away. Those that seemed to feel things were wrong lowered their heads, not daring to go against the village elder's grandson. Was this the fate of those who were demi-human? This was no different from a lynching. I really couldn't understand. My mind was a mess, and tears flowed uncontrollably. Faith, don't hold back and run away. Don't let your training go to waste. Hearing my father's voice, I turned to see him being forced to the ground by 6 guards. His face was slightly swollen, but his eyes were full of worry and fear. It was not worry and fear for himself, but for me. He was afraid I would end up dying here. Faith, don't just sit there. You must protect yourself. Yes, I wanted to grow stronger to protect those I love. Those who showed me kindness and cared for me. I felt like something had snapped in my mind. I slowly rose to my feet and looked at the people who were holding my parents, my brother, and Annie Finna down, and rage began to well up inside me. It was a kind of rage I have never felt before in my 2 lives. I felt like I was in a dazed state, as if time had stopped for me altogether. My eyes began to glaze over, and all of a sudden, all I could see was red. Let them go. My voice was low as I raised my head and stared at the one I knew who was responsible for all of this. Trent, let my family go right this instant. Well, what? Do you think I will listen to a monster like you? It's their fault for harboring a disgusting monster like you. Once we rid our village of you, we will kick your family out to wander to the lands below. Trent's words fueled my rage even more. My mother and father have always told me that no matter what happens, they would never abandon me. If I were to be kicked out of the village, they would follow me, and as a family, we would be nomads roaming from here and there. They were people I cared for more than anyone in this world. I would never abandon them, no matter what. Wind rush, air walk, everything seemed to happen way too fast. By the time I could really understand what I was doing, I was standing in the air, grasping Trent's neck, looking down at all the villagers. My eyes swept over everyone who was restraining my family with a cold gaze. Let them go, or I'll snap his neck. Words that I thought would never come out of my mouth flowed out so easily and so coldly that I didn't even recognize them myself. For the first time in my life, I was experiencing what it means to want to kill someone. What scared me more was how my mind was completely calm when I thought about how easy it would be for me to twist my hand and take the life of the young man I was grasping onto. That feeling of holding someone else's life in your hands was a scary one. But for my family and Auntie Finna, I was willing to bear the crime of staining my hands with someone else's blood. I wondered if this was how a soldier felt at a time like this, when they first came face to face with having the choice to kill someone. My body was trembling. I was not sure if it was due to rage, fear, or even excitement. But I knew that at this moment, this was my only course of action. These guards would not listen to just anyone. Only the village elder's family had the ability to order the village guard. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath before gazing coldly at the guards and ladies, still holding my family and Auntie Finna down. They all seemed to not know what to do. But as I went to order them to let my family go once more, an old voice echoed over the quiet village center. What is going on here? I looked over to see an old man hunched over with one hand on his back by his waist and the other hand inching forward with his cane. From the way everyone was moving out of the old man's way, I could only guess that he was the village elder and Trent's grandfather. Is no one going to speak? A guard walked forward and whispered into the old man's ear. The old man looked up at me, and that one look made me feel a strong pressure coming from him. It seemed the village elder was not as simple as he looked. Little girl, can you let my grandson go? The old man's words angered me. Was he asking me to let go of the main culprit? For what? To spill out lies? I couldn't help but spit out coldly. Why should I let him go when my family and Auntie Finna are being held captive? Why should I let him go when he was trying to kill me just now? Oh man, I do not want to sound rude, but asking me to let go of the person who is harming not only me, but my family and friends, and had also set up this lynching, I think it's a bit too much, don't you think? I was beyond angered. I raised my hand and wrote a flame spell in front of me. Ignite! A flame of fire danced in my free hand as I brought it closer to Trent's face. I will say it again. Release my family and Auntie Finna. I watched as the old man's gaze drifted from me to my family members and a frown appeared on his face. What the hell are you guys doing? Is this how the village guard should handle themselves? Sander, explain what happened. Dash. I breathed a sigh of relief when I saw the guards letting my father up. But I felt pain seeing how bruised and beat up he was. My father was strong, but if he is snuck up on him, he won't be able to do much. You bastard! My father roared as he got up and punched one of the guards in the face, causing him to smash into the crowd of villagers. Screams could be heard as blood dripped from the man's face. Village elder, you said my daughter would be welcomed here no matter what. You said no one would try to harm her. And now here you're good for nothing brat of a grandson, just try to hold a public lynching. My father roared in anger. This was the first time I saw him so angry. I could even see some scales forming on his body. It seems he actually had a bit of our ancestral bloodline within him. He turned and looked at me, his eyes growing soft. Faith, Go ahead and kill the little bastard. Your father will bear it all. No, wait. The village elder yelled out in a panic. It seems my father's words really scared him. Sander, please let him go. I will severely punish him and put him in a holding cell for a few years so he can learn his lesson. But he is the last of my bloodline. I watched as my father's chest heaved up and down. I want every guard who participated and every woman as well punished with the most severe punishment below death. My family has done nothing but help this village, and this is the respect we get in turn. Not a single one of you even stepped forward to try to help. All of you are a shame on humankind. All the land that I own will also no longer belong to this village. This means no more wheat will be given to the village or its people. All rental rights will also be revoked. You must agree to all these demands, or I will have my daughter snap that little bastard's neck. As my father was saying this, he helped my brother up. Annie Finna and my mother also walked over to his side. Luckily, they did not get seriously hurt. I could only see a few bruises on their wrists. They all began picking the things up from the cart that had spilled. I kept a tight grip on Trent. I only needed to squeeze his neck a little more to kill him. Deep inside of me, I truly wished to do that. Scum like this did not deserve to live. But I kept my calm and pushed those feelings down. There was a time and place for everything. I saw the old man sigh and shake his head. I can't allow the wheat fields to be taken away. That would be cutting a lifeline for all the farmers. Why do I care? It's my land, my father said with a sneer. If I see a single person on any of my land, I will burn the fields to ash. Sander, you are being unreasonable. The village elder yelled out. My anger began to soar once more, causing Trent to groan in pain. Hearing his grandson cry out, the village elder began to panic once more. I'm sure we can work something out if we all calm down. Old man, you want us to calm down? Do you not realize if I was weak, I would have died before you even showed up? I understood that the old man wanted to save his grandson. I was angry and I was holding myself back big time, but I was starting to lose my patience. I understand. The old man lowered his head. I could tell from the tone of his voice that he was feeling regretful. If I had not believed that Trent wanted command of the guards to take a few with him out into the forest, then none of this would have happened. I'm just as at fault as he is. But please, as I said, he's the last of my family's bloodline. The old man looked up at me with eyes that showed no hint of malice. I felt like what he was saying was not a lie. But this still doesn't change the fact of what has happened here today. Some things cannot be forgiven so easily. Father, at my call, my father hopped up into the air with me and stood in front of me. This was a fruit of our training at night called Air Step, a spell that allowed you to walk on air. It was a tricky spell because you had to trust your magic, and you also had to have perfect control of it or you would fall to the ground. It was an intermediate spell, almost a high-ranking spell, but because of its low mana cost, it could be used by anyone as long as they had the concentration to use it. Faith. My father looked at me with a questioning gaze. His eyes were soft when he looked at me, a big difference from the cold gaze he was giving the others. What if? I whispered into my father's ear, while holding Trent out away, so he couldn't hear anything. Will this work? As long as you are willing to do it this way. My father answered with a nod. I just don't want to cause more of a scene than necessary. It is already a fact I can never enter the main village again, I said, lowering my head. I hated to say it, but I would have no choice. I could not risk any incidents like this again. All right, my father nodded and patted my head before turning around and letting himself fall to the ground. We were not high up, only about 10 feet off the ground. Village elder, let's do this. Let my daughter beat up Trent and all the women who were involved today until she is satisfied without killing them, of course, and I get to beat up the guards. And lastly, I will continue to lend my land out, but you all will need to pay a higher tax. I had not known at all that all the farmland near my house was owned by my father. It all seemed to have been passed down to my father from his father, who got it from his father. It was all inherited, and it seemed to have been lent out for many years now. I have been wondering why we were never in the need of anything, with how little land we had. The elder frowned slightly, but still nodded his head. Fair enough. I agree. I smiled hearing that as I raised my little fist and pulled it back. Trent seemed to find my sweet, angelic smile terrifying because his eyes shot open wide and with a little bit of fear. Bam, 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 bam. I kept hitting him over and over again. The entire time, I was smiling away. I'm sure I probably looked like a demon to the villagers, but I no longer cared. Right now, I was letting out all the anger that I had bottled up. To make things worse, I was secretly healing him. With every punch, I would break his nose over and over again. With healing him in between, he would end up with no pain until I broke his nose once more. I punched his eyes, his cheeks, and his mouth. I didn't heal those. I planned to beat him up until he was unrecognizable. When I finished with his face, I landed on the ground and tossed Trent like a piece of trash to the ground before I started kicking him. No one dared to stop me, not even the village elder. They all watched and gasped as I continued my torrent of blows to Trent's body. I have no idea how many teeth he spat out or how many bones I broke so far. All I know was he deserved every bit of this beating. Only when my anger subsided, enough did I finally let him go. He was probably in a lot of pain to the point he couldn't even move. He was still breathing, that much I did know. Now that he was done, it was time to take care of the ladies who held my mother and Annie Finna back, but when I turned around, I saw them all on the ground already and my mother cracking her knuckles. It seemed she needed to vent her anger as well. On my father and brother's side, well, those guards were not having a good time. My father's fist was like a steel beam, smashing them in the head. I wondered if they would have brain damage once he was done with them. I had refrained from doing that to Trent, as I did not want to cause more trouble. But all in all, I was very satisfied with this scene. It was a breath of fresh air, knowing my family was able to vent out their anger as well. A few days passed since the merchant caravan and the public failed lynching. My family and I all thought that we had settled things, but it seemed that was not the case. It was evening time, and my mother and father were spending some time together by the fireplace. My brother was busy studying, and I was still working on my fusion magic. The day after the incident, my father filled my mother in on our training and explained to her my breakthroughs. When she found out about my fusion magic, she jumped for joy and began praising me all over again. Because it seemed if I did share it with the kingdom, I could become a court magician. This was an idea for later on, but I was not sure how much I wanted to be around people after this incident. Well, at any rate, it became a family rule to not speak of my fusion magic. All my drawings of magic circles were also destroyed after creating them. Luckily, I could imprint them in my mind before they got destroyed. Sadly, I was still having a hard time combining it all into a quick cast spell. It was on this day that a knock came at the door. My father frowned and got up while motioning for me to toss my papers into the fire, which I promptly did. He opened it up to see the village elder's assistant standing at the door. He was a young man in his early 30s. "Sander, it is good to see you. Out with it. Why are you here?" My father did not seem to like anyone from the village after what had happened. It was to be expected, though. While Trent and the others were sent to prison because of what they had done, the fact of the matter that it involved so many villagers and no one actually stood out to help in their time of need made it hard for him to trust anyone. The village elder has called a meeting to address the concerns of everyone in the village. He has asked for you and your daughter to also join the meeting as it concerns her. I suddenly felt sick. I was going to have to face all these stupid people again. I really just wanted to say I'm not going, but if I don't, I am afraid it would end up causing us issues if we cannot voice our own opinion. I glanced up at my father, who was looking back at me, and gave him a nod. He then turned to the village elder's assistant and asked, "When is the meeting?" "An hour from now. But the village elder wants to speak with you beforehand." The village elder's assistant replied. He seemed to feel a bit of relief. I'm not sure if this man is a bad guy or a good guy, but I feel he is one of those neutral type people who don't make opinions on things. At least, this is my first impression of him. I could be completely wrong, though. We will be there soon. My father said before giving his thanks to the village elder's assistant and closing the door. "Sander," my mother called out. She was worried about what was going to happen. I could tell by the expression on her face. "Lilith, don't worry. No matter what happens, I will not let anything happen to Faith. Plus, I think if Faith got really mad, no one could stop her." My father walked over and patted me on the head. In truth, I think if I really needed to, I could do as my father said. But the thought of killing others was not something I really wanted to do if I could help it. Although I know the kind of world I live in would not truly allow for such a thing to happen. I know sooner or later I will have to kill someone. I just hoped it would not come too soon. Faith. My mother walked over and hugged me as well. No matter what happens, we are with you. So do not let anyone walk all over you. Our Cerelia family has given a lot to this village. So if they do try to do something, we will burn the fields and leave this place and find a new home. Your mother is right. We will leave if they try to do anything to you. My father echoed my mother. Even my brother came over to join in on the hug. I really had no idea how I could ever repay my family. Even my brother, who would soon be old enough to marry, was never once angry with me. I'm sure many girls were not willing to look his way no matter how handsome he was due to him being my brother. But he never held any of it against me. He was the best big brother in the entire universe. My father had me wear the leather armor he had prepared for me to go out into the forest with. At his word, I attached my sword to my side and then got lifted up to sit on his shoulder as we made our way down to the village elder's house. It was already close to evening time as we walked down the dimly lit road. As we walked by some houses, the people living there would close their doors and window shutters as if we were some kind of bandits or invading army. When we arrived at the village elder's house, the old man was already standing outside waiting for us. Sander, you are here. Come with me. The village elder glanced at Sander, then at me, before motioning for us to come in. The village elder's house was the biggest in the village. This was a given as he was the leader. However, even though it was big, it was a far cry from being anything amazing. It had 2 floors and was made with the same material as the other villager houses. He brought us to a sitting area that had rustic wooden furniture and sat down. A young woman who looked to be a maid brought us tea and some crackers. I wanted to speak with you. This village meeting was called because of those asking for your family to be banished. And, before you lose your temper, hear me out. I will not banish your family. But unless you can convince them to back down, I will need to do something. But I will make sure it will not hinder you or your family. I do not wish for this, but as the village elder, I have to listen to the villagers' complaints. Complaints about what? I asked. He told my father to calm down, but not me. Are you saying they can do as they please just because of their prejudice? That is not what I am saying, but to appease those who might come to harm your family, I will need to do something on the surface. Little Faith, you're a bright girl. I know this by how well you act. Even earlier, when my grandson was abusing his power to try to get rid of you, you still held it in and saw the bigger picture. I thank you for that. The village elder bowed his head to me. He must have been really worried that I would kill the stupid brat. Not that he doesn't deserve death. I couldn't actually deny his words. But still, it was stupid that we were being forced to give in to the majority when we did nothing wrong. But if it will keep my family from having to be banished from the village, I do not care. But one thing I did not understand was that if we own the land, how could they banish us? I'm sure it is probably some kind of crazy rules and regulations of the village. But still, as long as it is not too unreasonable. But elder, let me say this. If they push things too far, I will burn those fields and make them useless, or I will take them back altogether. You may be the village elder and have the right to kick me and my family out of the main village, but I still own that land, if you know what I mean. You know more than anyone that my family are all highly skilled mages. My father's words seemed to have carried some weight to them, because the village elder quickly shook his head. Sander, I already said no one is being banished. I have the final say, and you have my word this will never happen. If nothing is able to be concluded between the 2 sides, I will enforce something that everyone will have to follow. But banishment is not on the table. The village elder made sure to make the last point very clear. The village could not live without those fields. It was the livelihood of many villagers, after all. All right, but I will say this, if anyone renting a field for me shows up, I am taking it back. My father stated firmly. This was understandable, because if someone were to really show up that was renting a field from the family they're trying to banish, then they were not showing any respect to those who were helping them survive. They would just be digging their own graves, even if they were greedy, and hoping to get the land for free if we did get banished.